They should all be muted, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
Box there.
John, is there any chance you could do the minutes for this meeting?
I guess I could.
Andrew and I are still both underwater with our minutes, and is Chuck. So
All right.
I'm hoping you might be able to take this one on, and I'll do the next one.
All right. I'll do my best.
Thank you.
I'll send you a transcript.
I appreciate it.
We just found out how to do that. Okay. We just let one person in, give a few minutes, and we'll start the meeting. And everybody who's not a commission member right now, please mute yourself. And unless called on, don't just start talking. Use the raise hand function and the reaction button. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tirone, Reading's Conservation Administrator, consistent with the governor's orders superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during this COVID-19 crisis. The Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom. Audio and video participation for conservation commissioners, applicants, their representatives, and the public. During this meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and members of the public individually as needed. During the commission meeting, the chair will be the only one to permit shared video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, Chair Moore will conduct a roll call vote to confirm that all members are present and that they can hear.
Okay. John Sullivan.
John Sullivan, member present.
Andrew.
Andrew Dribbin, member present.
Carl Ciccone.
Carl Ciccone, member present.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, Vice Chair, present.
And Martha Moore, Chair, present.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. I'll turn that on after I run through the script here. Also be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All of the material for this meeting is available on the Conservation Division site, and I recommend that commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading's web page, or unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise that applicants in particular that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which were not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written comment, but should understand that not all participants nor the commission members will be able to see any written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for safe and effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure that accurate minutes are taken. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After commissioner members make their remarks and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford the public comment as follows. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, the chair will call on each one by name and afford them 4 minutes for any comment. The applicants may be requested to respond by the chair. After public comments, the chair will once again go down the line of commissioners, inviting each one to provide further comment, question, or motions. Please hold off until your name is called. Finally, each vote taken during tonight's meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. That's what I have.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:09 p.m. And our first hearing on the agenda is Zero Small Lane, but I believe that's
Recording in progress.
already been continued until March 8th. Is that correct?
That's correct. We voted on that at our last meeting.
Okay, so we don't have to talk about that one today.
Other
50
than to
Joanna
say
Drive.
that it's been continued a lot, but I think a lot of headway has happened over the last couple of days, and I expect it on March 8th.
Good. All right. The next one is 50 Joanna Drive. Continue the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Ciro Federa under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to construct a 42 square foot addition with a proposed front porch within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and riverfront area. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office and on the Conservation Division page under Current Project. Assessors Map 23, Lot 121, RCC file number 2023-01. All right, are they here? Yes, I see you,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Hello, Giovanni Federa with Federa Engineering. I'm the project engineer. So we are proposing a 42 square foot home addition in the front of the property. In the rear, there's some wetlands that were not delineated, but we got those wetlands based off the GIS that's shown on the plot plan. We also have a stream to the east, which is on the right side of the house, and the entire property is within the riverfront. So, Chuck, can I share my screen?
Sure, you can. I was just getting it ready, but please share it.
Sure thing.
Easier.
Okay. So as you can see, the addition is right here in the front. The stream is right here, and the stream was not delineated. However, it was we got the aerial imagery and we scaled it. So the location of it is plus or minus about a foot or two. So it's very close to being precise of where it's located. So the porch deck is about 57 feet away from the river, from the stream. And so this is what we provided. And we also did provide this diagram right here, where we're taking out currently impervious area and we're adding impervious area, and that's at about a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, one thing that we also did not submit, we do also plan on adding erosion control barriers, and we do plan on restoring in accordance with the riverfront. So that's something we should have outlined, but I wanted to discuss it here at the meeting. With the restoration, we do plan on cleaning it up. Now, I do have pictures of the riverfront, which I can pull up right here. Right here. Let's go in here. All right, so this is the riverfront so far. This is between the house right here in this top left corner and the stream to the right. It was, I know the homeowners, they purchased the property a few months back, and I know they did do some cleanup in that area. So this picture was taken, I believe, today. So these are the current conditions. As you can see, there's a lot of shrub and, minimal trash, but there's definitely a little bit of, trash sunk in there, so as you can see, some cans and whatnot, but as part of the restoration, we do plan on cleaning that area. In addition to cleaning that area, they do plan on providing plantings, so some shrubs. I think planting 5 shrubs would be fair if the commission would agree on that. The shrubs, they could be native, and I can get you a species list if you would like. That's the restoration that we would do. And the square footage of the shrubs would be well over, the 42 square feet of the addition that's being proposed. that's, pretty much what I just wanted to discuss. If,
Giovanni, do you
I
know,
think,
am I quoted? Oh, Giovanni, had a question. Do
Yeah.
you know the square footage of the yard waste that you're going to remove? You
The-
can guess if you had a look at it.
so the debris in that area, now when you say debris, are you talking about like the leaves and all that?
No, you had a better picture that showed a pile of brush that was like mounded all over
Like
the
that?
existing soil. Yeah, just in the back there.
Right there.
That appears to be the brush pile that we looked at.
Okay.
And that's what I thought you were talking about. You might have been just talking about the cans and things like that.
Yeah, and we're happy to clean all the brush and all that if we're
So if that thing
totally-
is 4 foot wide by, let's say, 15 feet long,
Mhm. You're looking
that would
60
be-
square feet.
that would be on top of the 42. And so that would be considered mitigation because you're not
Mhm.
going to do any planting. It may restore itself, maybe
Okay.
a seed bank underneath. But so that would probably about 60 square feet. All right, so I just wanted to get that out there. Sorry, Martha, back to you.
Do any members of the commission have comments, either from having visited the site or questions for Mr. Federa? Brian,
Yeah. Hang on, I gotta change screens here to bring up my notes. Okay. So it sounds like from what Chuck was just saying that there's some mitigation in there. But Giovanni, earlier you used the word restoration. And as you know, in the riverfront regulations, those are two different paragraphs. So what is your intent? What are you going to do since you're over the allowable percent of degraded area? Are you going to restore or mitigate? Which should we be paying attention to?
We're happy to do a combination of both, between cleaning up the yard waste, the shrub or the brush, I mean, and, maybe add some plantings, we're happy to just, satisfy the commission if the commission agrees.
So larger picture, what can you tell us about the intents for the future for like landscape and the front and backyard in particular? Are there any plans to do anything with the driveway? Can you? speak to any of those
No
issues?
plans to do anything with the driveway, I don't believe. I think they really just plan on just keeping it as is, keeping the backyard as is, maybe cleaning it up with, whatever leaves are there right now. And just kind of maintaining it as a yard as it is today, minus the leaves and brush.
Okay, but there's a fair number of depressions and undulations back there. Do you think there's going to be any plans for any kind of leveling, any grading or anything in the future?
I don't believe so, no.
So if we were to put in some kind of a continuing condition, limiting future alterations, would that be okay with the homeowners?
I believe that would be okay, yes.
Okay. Let's see. So you mentioned erosion control. I, for one, would like to see what you have in mind there. I mean, already you guys have begun doing some work, and there's some piles along the driveway side of the house for what looks like it may have been foundation taken out or something. Given a heavy enough rainstorm that already could be eroding a bit towards the stream, the river on the side. So I would strongly urge you to do some erosion control, essentially right away, just to get it under control. And I'd like to see what your plans are for erosion control, where you're gonna put it. If we go back to the plot plan,
Absolutely.
then maybe we could sketch it out, even for the commission right now, to what your idea is.
So the idea is really to just, the driveway, here's the edge of pavement right there. Now, looking at it from the picture, right? I think the picture might be a little better because we can actually see the trees and the tree line. The erosion control, I believe, would be best if we're gonna clean out the brush, right? So we need to go a little beyond the brush. So probably just right after where the brush is, and we can add the erosion control barrier, straw wattle, silt sock, silt fence. So probably just a little bit further past where the brush is and the area intended to clean.
Okay. So while we're on this picture, we were there today, a few of us were there today, and we saw lots of vines, and in particular that tree kind of left of center has a plethora of vines all over it. So we'd like you to do some invasive control, those vines in particular, but there's a number of vines throughout that area that should be cut.
Okay.
Specifically, we're looking at the bittersweet vines.
Correct, yeah. that's
Okay.
right.
So Giovanni, just clarify for me, would you be putting the erosion control on the house side of the edge of the trees there? Or are you talking about trying to run it through in the middle of the shrubberies somewhere?
Probably run it through in between the shrubbery and kind of make a clear path between, you know, have access to the brush that would be cleaned out. That might be the way to approach this.
Yeah. Chuck, what do you think of where the erosion control should be?
Yeah, so, yeah, Giovanni, I think you might be at a disadvantage. I think the other side of the brush pile might be kind of steep. You're probably only looking at mulch sock or straw wattle along the driveway, and it probably should be just before the tree line starts.
So,
You could just step over it and get that.
Okay.
You might want to look at the brush piles. I thought it would be something that could easily be done by hand. I mean, I don't expect you to drive a, Bobcat in there, and it doesn't need that kind of attention. It looked like, something that can be done by hand. But if you have a different opinion and you could reach in and grab it, then that's fine. But I think driving back there probably not needed. It's only about 10 feet back from the first tree.
mhm. No, I totally agree with that. I just figured maybe adding it a little bit beyond, just so that we are all within that scope, within the erosion control area while we're cleaning the brush. But I think it's, I do agree with you. I mean, there's
Yeah,
not
there's a
too much
lot.
erosion that's going to happen with cleaning brush.
Yeah, there's a lot of material on there, the leaf litter and whatnot, that's going to stay. It's just this pile that has, and you can tell it's just things that's been around the house that's been thrown in there. So it looks different than, the leafy, I guess, plant material. All right. I had another, just to make sure. So Brian, you had mentioned that you wanted to limit development on the site. I would just add, unless a permit is obtained. Do you accept that?
No,
Okay.
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
But a permit obtained, but not in the area where there's going to be restoration mitigation, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
they could, so like, let's say you talked about landscaping. If they wanted to do any substantial landscaping back there or tree removal, they'd have to get a permit from the Conservation Commission to do that. It's just not part of this project. It looks likely that it may be part of some future project because of the state of the backyard. So I understand why you might want it on there.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with that permit, absolutely. I was thinking that the part where they do restoration mitigation wouldn't be part of a future permit, that would be left
Mhm.
as is.
And then your strict development in the mitigation area for perpetuity.
I do have one additional question, if I can.
Mhm.
Giovanni, you mentioned you're willing to do some plantings and you threw out there a number of shrubs. So you obviously thought about it a little bit. Do you have any idea where you'd be thinking of putting whatever plantings you had in mind?
Just by looking at this picture, and I think this picture kind of is the best approach, but you know, anywhere where there's an open gap, right? You know, like, so for example, right here, looks like there's kind of an open spot where we can add a few plantings. I think that would be a good spot right there. But I think the intent of any adding any plantings would be kind of pretty much in this area right here, or along, you know, this view.
And what kind of plants were you considering?
I wrote down a few. I think, I mean, you know, we have summer sweet or blueberry or viburnum. Those are, you know, commonly used and they're native. So I think those would be good. And, you know, the square footage of those, even if you add, you know, 3 plantings, you know, those would exceed well over 100 square feet just as they're fully mature and just the coverage that it takes up.
Okay. So in the interest of not monopolizing this, Martha, I pass it back to you.
Well, Andrew's got his hand up. Andrew, your turn.
All right. Thank you. So we'll just have a question about, Giovanni, how you interpret the riverfront standards. So specifically 1058.5E.
Yeah, 1055E is that's refers to a new development. So if this site was not previously developed and we're, you know, cutting down all these trees to add a new house, then we could not alter up to 10% of the riverfront area, which in this case would be the lot area. You know, lot E really is only applicable to a lot that is not over the 10%. Anything over the 10% would then defer down to section F, 5F.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with that part. And I also agree that it's relating towards probably bigger developments, but it does fit into this it's redevelopment. It's not new development. That's the one thing I want to clarify. So you're redeveloping the house from the inside out. You're not doing much on the outside. Well, you are doing a little bit. So that triggers the riverfront standards. And by reading that, the way I interpret 1058.5E is that anything greater than 10% of the area, we're trying to retrofit your house into current, or any development into current standards. So standards have changed. You can't build a house like this against the river anymore. So now that you're doing work on it, we try to get it up to current standards. It's like what you are doing with the electrical and the plumbing. It's the same kind of deal. So per the standards, you're allowed to alter up to 10% of the area can be degraded. And if it's more, so you're saying right now you're at what, like 16%?
Yes.
So technically you would have to either mitigate, even though you're only adding 42 square feet, we would be expecting you to mitigate down to 10% of degradation. We're not talking about just the 42 square feet that you and Chuck are talking about. To me, I want to make sure we understand what the regulations actually say, and then we as a committee can interpret them how we want to make sense for this particular project. But I don't even get a full sense that the proper understanding, even by Chuck, of the regulations are being understood. So we're going to see this potentially in the future. I just want to make sure we understand how the regulations are actually being written, so that we try to interpret them in a more literal sense. That's
So
right.
when the lot is grandfathered in, as in being in existence prior to 1996, which this house has been, it's pretty much grandfathered in with the degraded area that's on site right now. So bringing
No,
it down,
no.
bringing it back down to 10%, that is not what the regulations say.
The property is not grandfathered in. The question is, are you doing enough to trigger, like, are you really altering the landscape by just adding 42 square feet? That's what we as a commission have to decide. I think I know how most of them feel, but once we decide that, if you were doing more substantial work on the outside of the house, that's why Brian asked, are you doing any landscaping? Then that's why you will have to get a, and they should know, technically, once they start doing alterations to the outside of the house, we have to try to interpret this 310 CMR 1058.5. It's not grandfathered in.
Right.
Technically, we should get your property down to current standards, which would be 10% of the lot should be what we're aiming for, or you are going to mitigate or restore per the regulations.
So if you refer to 5E, right, it says, the degraded area should be less than 10% of the riverfront, except in accordance with, and then it refers to 5F or G, right?
Correct.
And then it says, when the applicant proposes restoration on site of degraded riverfront area, alteration may be allowed notwithstanding the criteria of section 5C, D, and E at a ratio in square feet of at least 1:1 of restored area to area of alteration not conforming to the criteria. So the area not conforming to the criteria is that square footage that's above the 10%.
Exactly.
So you are allowed to remain that area above the 10%. So we can remain at 16%. We just need to restore at a 1:1. So if we're gonna, disturb 42 square feet, we need to restore to 42 square feet. We're not bringing it down to 10%. That defeats the whole purpose of the riverfront and grandfathered properties,
No, that's where I don't agree. So you would you could keep all of the degraded area being the impervious area, but you would have to restore, and that has a very literal, like you said restore earlier, and Brian was asking what you meant. In the environmental world, that has a very definitive meaning. So you have about, 100 feet of riverfront, and then you have about 50 feet between you and the house. So you have over 5,000 square feet of riverfront roughly on your property. So you could pretty easily restore, not easily, because restoring is actually pretty intensive, but you could meet the area requirements and still not, rip up any of the driveway or anything like that.
So Andrew, what are you suggesting they would need to do to meet that?
Well, that's up to them. We've had this conversation. That's up to us accepting it. But for me, it's important that we understand, at least we try to understand what the riverfront regulations are asking us to consider. In this particular scenario, I think you're doing so little on the outside, it doesn't really get triggered. But I don't know if you're really not planning to do anything on the outside of the house. So that's why Brian, I agree with Brian's suggestion that as soon as you want to plant anything on the outside, then we should be trying to really meet these riverfront regulations.
So Andrew, what's your feeling about, he's proposing some debris cleanup and some trash cleanup and planting 5 native shrubs, which he has named and told us where he wants to plant them. Does that meet the requirements to make you think we could approve this project?
Well,
second here. So we cannot just, so I know, Andy, you have your opinion about this, but we've had a lot of discussions with DEP, and I think that I'm not willing to accept that what you're saying. Think that what they're asking is that you mitigate for what you add to the existing conditions or restore based on that. So it's for any additional degraded area that you add to the property. You're saying you bring it back down to 10%. So I don't particularly care on this site how this goes, but I don't want us to make precedent here to follow until we definitively get the answer from either DEP or the commission decides on how they're going to do it. So whatever happens here is fine, but we're not talking regulations.
Chuck, we could have this conversation later. I did ask the DEP and she did confirm my interpretation of it. A, B, I just want us to be able to at least have an open conversation about this when a project in the riverfront comes up.
Yeah, so she
I
must
don't want to
be
assume
given
that just because
different.
the project's so small that the riverfront regulations don't apply.
Yeah, I get it, Andy. So I had a conversation with her too just last week, and I got a different answer. If you got that answer, if it was, because in my answer, she says any additional, she gives an example, all right? I don't
It's
know if you
okay.
wanna
I
go-
don't want
know
to
if you wanna go
discuss
through
this.
it,
I don't
yeah.
want to belabor this because it doesn't affect what we're making a decision here.
I just wanted to mention, we're not making policy here. This is,
I'm just reading the regulations and I don't see what you guys are saying. So that's okay. though.
Okay, so back to my question. Andy, has Giovanni proposed enough restoration and mitigation for it to satisfy you for this project?
I think we should always want to clean up any brush along the riverfront. I think the plantings, to be honest, it's not necessary for like trying to meet the regulations. Would it look nice? Yeah, but so I think the conversation is going okay.
All right, so you're okay with that. All right,
Oh, just to clarify, it's not restoration or mitigation though. We're just doing some cleanup.
okay, Carl or John, do you guys have any opinions or questions you want to bring up?
No, nothing new. I just agree that as Andrew said, the cleanup, I think is good to have in there. And then whatever triggers down the future, that we are aware of what's being altered to the site.
Okay. John?
I think you guys have covered everything that I was going to bring up, so.
Okay, then I'll ask my questions. Giovanni, do you have plans for what happens to the swing set in the backyard?
I don't know what's going to happen with that. It may be removed. It may stay. If I were to guess, I think it would be removed, but I don't know.
Okay, and if it's removed, you would plant vegetation where the swing set was, lawn or shrubberies or something?
I believe the plantings, we would just remain where I'm showing over here.
Mhm.
Right on this, basically between the driveway and the stream.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking if you take the swing set away, you're leaving a big bare spot in the backyard.
It would be grassed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And can you show your plans where you showed the square footage before and after? Yeah, this one here. I noticed that there's only a total degraded area increases by 4 square feet between the two plans. Do you include the driveway and the sidewalks in that degraded area, or just the rectangular part of the house?
The driveway and the sidewalks is included, yes.
Okay. And how do you add a 42 square foot addition and only add 4 square feet to the degraded area?
So the existing entry, it's a stairway with landing. That right now is brick, cement, concrete, and it's just concrete landing and stairway. So that's being removed and it's going to be filled in with grass or, you know, topsoil, and built above that will be the deck. So it's going from an impervious area to now a pervious area, pervious surface.
And so you're subtracting that change from the 42 square feet addition.
That is correct.
Got it. And what kind of plants are you expecting are going to survive under that deck?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I have
yeah.
not seen any decks with plants actually growing underneath them. So I'm a little surprised what you think is going to actually take root and grow in the shade under the deck. So I don't consider that to be an area of native vegetation. But I would be willing to approve this project with the 5 native shrubs you've proposed being along the side between the driveway and the stream, and the cleanup that you've proposed. I think those all help to mitigate the proposed addition and restore the native vegetation. So I just don't want to go on record as thinking you're going to get much growing underneath your deck. Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe put a point on that. So I think what I'm hearing, and I agree with it, is that we're likely to approve the plan, but we do not accept the premise that underneath the deck, even if water drips down to it, constitutes restoration or anything like that. It's still a place where natural habitat can't grow. And so as such, you're being approved in spite of that, not because of that. So just don't want to set the precedent going forward that we would consider under a deck to be pervious. I don't, and I think the commission doesn't too, but they can vote for themselves. That's it, Martha.
Carl.
Yeah, then that's great, Martha. I missed that, but I would just second Brian and you as well. I don't, even if something did grow, I think the fact that the natural habitation wouldn't find its, you know, I agree. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to have just bare topsoil under there eroding down into the stream after the construction is over. So you'll want to figure out what's going to hold the soil in place in some way so that it's not all washing away as the water drips down through the deck.
Okay.
Okay, I think the commission has all had a chance to speak. Chuck has had a chance to speak. Are there any members of the general public who, oh, Chuck, do you want to say something else?
Just to kind of close up that discussion. So it sounds like so there was a kind of a project presented that considered the deck, you know, it wasn't degraded like the steps, and I think the commission has decided that decking or a deck is degraded area. Is that what you're all getting at? Just wanted to make sure, because I think that's within your purview to make that decision. Just wanted to get the terminology right. So now we'll consider decks a degraded area.
Yeah, I don't necessarily consider that the deck is impervious. You could possibly build a deck that would let water through, but I still don't think it's going to have native plants thriving underneath it in the shade. So
yeah, it lacks the
that's why I think
capacity
it's a
for
degraded
vegetation to
area.
grow.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any members of the general public who are here to comment or question about this project? If so, use the reaction button at the bottom of your screen and use the raise hand function in that reaction button, and we will unmute you and let you speak. Okay, seeing none. Is there any further discussion among commission members or Chuck or anything else Giovanni wants to present to us before we make a decision on this? All right, this is an RDA, so in order to allow this project to go forward, we would need to have a negative determination. Do we have anybody want to make a motion to close before we vote on the determination?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion that we close the hearing on 50 Johanna.
Does anybody else second that?
Okay, and can we have a vote? Start with the same order I called you in earlier.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, now a motion about the RDA.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination for 50 Johanna Drive with the conditions discussed during the public hearing.
Should we list those conditions?
Probably.
So the
Okay.
conditions I have is a continuing condition on any further landscaping or anything like that without obtaining a permit, and a condition in perpetuity for any area of mitigation or restoration. Also, plantings according to the information that Giovanni has given us, and debris, trash, cut board pickup, again, according to how Giovanni has told us.
The plantings are specifically 5 native shrubs picked from among summer sweet, blueberry, and viburnum, and planted between the driveway and the stream.
So
Anybody
given that
here, any
modified-
other conditions that we mentioned that we didn't bring up yet?
Yeah, cut the Oriental bittersweet vine
That's right.
on the lot.
Between the driveway and the stream, the Oriental bittersweet. Yep. Anybody else have anything that didn't get in? Okay, so that's our motion. Do we have a second?
This is John, I'll second. And John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Giovanni.
all right. Our next hearing, and my computer has died, so I cannot read the agenda. What's our
Like-
next hearing, Chuck?
Sure, continue the public hearing for request for determination, backability. Oh, that was, sorry, got the wrong one. 52 Joanna. So continue the public hearing on a notice and filed by applicant pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 31, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Wetlands Protection Bylaw 7.1. The applicant proposes to construct an in-ground pool, approximately 14 by 34, replacement of an expansion and existing deck attached to the house, a 10 by 16 foot pool house, and attached covered patio lounge and putting green. Safety fence around the backyard and landscaping, although work is within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at Town Hall or by visiting the Conservation Division page and clicking on project by year. The project DEP file number is 270-0765. And we have.
This is 52 Luanis Drive.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I know we have the applicants right here. but I can't see. So if we could do some raised hands for the people that want to join the meeting at this moment, it would be great. Then I can get you all in. Okay.
Bob Schoenbach is one of them.
Yeah, I got Bob. I
Okay.
got, Christine Farr right there.
And Matthew. There they go. They've got their hands raised.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a big
Okay.
help.
Okay, I think I got everyone. Everyone can turn on their screen. Yep, okay.
Oh, okay, so hi, Kristen Farr with Hancock Associates. So we're here in second hearing. We did, as the commission asked, we reviewed and replaced some of the landscape plantings with some native plantings. We addressed the Phragmites request, the request to remove the Phragmites. Turns out it is on the neighboring property, so we don't have any control over that. And then within the 25-foot zone of natural vegetation, you wanted to see that restored, so we provided planting plan for that. All those things have been submitted, and I hope you had a chance to review them. And I'm available to answer any questions about that.
Chuck, can you put the newest planting plan and plot plan up for everybody to see?
Sure. Let
Can
me
you
know if this
also
is.
add Jason Maury?
Yeah, Jason is a
I think he has
co-host already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason
he's-
should be
he
able to
just turn on his.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, what I'm looking for is the new plants compared to the original list of plants.
For within the landscaped like pool area or the more wetland type area?
Well, basically anything that's within the 100-foot riverfront or wetland, not
Okay.
riverfront, but within the 100 feet of the resource area.
Okay, so the boxwoods have been replaced with little blue stem and eastern yew, and the Coosa dogwood has been replaced with river birch.
Okay. And does that leave any non-native plants in that area?
I think there are a couple, but they're not, problematic. Maybe Jason can speak to that part.
Okay. Okay, I'm seeing the line for the 100-foot wetland buffer goes through the back corner of the house and out along the pathway to the pool pretty much. So plantings that are shown between the pool and the house might be outside the 100-foot boundary. But anything between the pool and the wetland is within the 100-foot area.
That's correct.
And our goal is to have the plants within the 100-foot area that's within our jurisdiction be native plants. And I think you've replaced some of the non-natives with natives, but I think you have not got all of them yet.
So there are a couple, but they're not problematic as far as like being invasive or.
Jason, can you go through the plant
Yeah.
what you replaced and their locations?
I mean, we just addressed, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You guys all
Yep.
hear me? I'm in my truck, sorry. So, we replaced, everything that was non-native, within the buffer. So I guess we could debate what you feel is, with outside of that. To my recollection, I think we're in compliance with that request.
Okay,
Changes we've made are all within the scope, and we're basically, we altered the plan to address the concerns from the previous meeting.
okay. I think if you want to have a Japanese maple between the pool pathway and the house, that looks like that's outside the 100-foot.
Correct.
But
I think
you
the 100
still-
foot runs through the dining room, that little bump out by the deck.
Yeah,
And it
and
sweeps.
then along the basically the neck of the pool that goes out to become a path.
Correct. So
Um,
that one plant is outside the 100 foot buffer.
Right, but what about the cut leaf Japanese maple that's between the pool and the fence? Over near
that
the emerald
zoom
green
in.
arborvitaes. Is that still there? It's not visible on the screen.
I don't think so. I think I took all those out.
Okay, can, whoever's running the picture, can you move the page so we can see the bottom of the page better? Yeah, there we go. That's the Japanese maple right there.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that was supposed to be another arborvitae, so we'll change that out.
Okay. All right. So that was one that I noticed was still there. But you
And
think everything else that is
Yeah,
in
I missed that.
area is now native?
It is. And I missed that one. I apologize. I assumed it was a hedge of arborvitae just to screen the house next door.
Okay,
So Martha, I'd say the only other one, just because I think this looks much better, so thank you. The Miss Kim, if they could even replace just another kind of common lilac, that would work. But I think the Miss Kim is, I'm not sure that's a native. The Miss Kim lilac. Near
No
the
problem.
river birch on the kind of where the emerald green kind of hits the river birch. But anyway,
Okay.
it definitely looks much better. So it's
Okay.
a good variety.
okay. I'm not seeing which one is Miss Kim, but I'll believe you. All right, so,
Mhm.
So with the plantings around the pool area, we're now happy with the plantings that they're offering. And do anybody on the commission have comments about the plantings that they are suggesting down in the zone of natural vegetation? And can we move the plot to see that part? In my screen, I still can't see it. It's off to the right too far. Chuck, are you the one controlling that?
Yeah, it might just have to be the other.
Yes, I am. I think it's on the other,
Yeah.
screen. Yeah, because I didn't see it, and that doesn't,
It's on the
So-
survey.
it's on the original one,
Yeah, or
It's on,
what's it called? Survey.
the landscaping
Site
plan.
plan. Site plan. Site plan. Right? Isn't that you can see the back of the property?
This is one I had before.
Do you want me to tell you what they are while we're
That might be
waiting?
easier.
Sure,
Okay.
while he's looking.
So we suggested 10, 20 trees, 10 swamp white oaks, because you seem to like oaks, and 10 red maples. The idea is to kind of mimic what's already growing there, because those plants seem to be happy. We also added 6 of each of these, black chokeberry, sweet pepper bush, eastern shad bush, northern arrowwood, and common winterberry.
Wow.
And then for the understory, we suggested a couple of seed mixes at a ratio of 1:1. Those being New England erosion control / restoration mix for detention basins and moist sites, mixed with New England conservation / wildlife mix. So those should provide wildlife habitat and good undergrowth for that restoration area.
And at the back edge of that restoration area, when we did the site visit, it looked like there was a clump of multiflora rose. And I'm assuming that you would be trying to take out that multiflora rose in order to put your native plantings in.
Yes, that would be the idea.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's not, any super complicated method of getting rid of multiflora rose as opposed to other invasive plants like, say, knotweed. I think you can just rip it out.
Yeah, I think cutting it down and then digging out the roots probably.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas, Chuck? I mean, Carl?
Like I think we all know upkeep. I mean, pulling them out would be great, and then I think you just have to kind of see what happens after that. I don't, but maybe that's quite the proposed planting, so it's pretty hardy stuff. That'll be nice.
And Carl, do you have a sense of whether that is the appropriate amount of trees for that amount of space? She said,
Yeah, I mean,
as it
yeah,
seems
it
like
was
that's an
10.
awful lot of trees.
That I know, and in the the oaks, of course, over a long period of time, will get probably the largest in the group. But I mean, it's 160 feet by.
It's about 1,900 square feet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know, like it's like you could take a couple oaks away and add a couple more of those shrubbery, those pepper bush and the what was the first one you had said? I
Black chokeberry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
black
those are awesome. Those, and even given that kind of area, they might grow in with the trees. So if anything, if there's a couple too many trees, maybe we substitute, and it's probably beneficial to the client. Really, it's probably less expensive. But you could probably buy. So what's the ratio, Martha? Like 2 to 1 for a tree for shrubs, or right for shrubs?
Yeah.
So maybe you add in 4 to 6 more of those shrubs, and those will get nice size, 6 to 8 foot round shrubs. So that might be kind of nice.
Use your
right?
oaks and maples, buy a couple of oaks and a couple of maples. So like instead of 10 of each, 8 of each. Is that what you're
Yeah.
thinking, Carl?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I think those shrubs are great choices. So my point is, I think that would be good. That's a nice understory too to those trees, and they'll fill in less competition for the oak. The oaks are going to take 650 years anyway to. But
Right. So if we modified the trees to be 8 of each, and we did the black chokeberry and the sweet pepper bush to
8, so
8 of each.
that'd be 8 more, Martha, right? 8 more.
8 more.
Shrubs, right. Yeah.
There's 30 shrubs total right now.
Right. So, but if we swapped, say, 4 of those trees, right, in the addition of more of the shrubbery, I think that would total 8 additional shrubs, right? Minus 4
Okay.
trees plus 8 shrubs.
Okay.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Carl, does that make sense to you? I mean, not
Yeah.
Carl. Now,
Yeah,
Chuck, does that make sense to you? Carl has said, now Chuck's turn.
Yes, I was going to mention that shrubs are 2 to 1.
Okay.
So we're on the right path here. Thank you.
And that makes your trees be able to be just a little bit more spread out. Have a little more room for each tree.
Yeah, that's a nice list. We should. It's a nice list.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission with comments, thoughts, questions on this project? Brian?
Yeah, I may have said it last time, I just want to be clear in case. There were a number of areas where there was yard waste. When we were there, I talked to the homeowners and maybe even you, Kristen. I don't remember if you were there or not, but so if as part of the project, we could clear out those areas where there's grass clippings and what have you. And also when we talked to Bob and his wife, is possible that there are neighbors contributing to that. So if they could talk to the neighbors, discourage the neighbors, that would be a big positive. That's my only comment that I want to get in there.
And where did we say the construction entrance was going to be for this project?
I think it was going to be to the left of the property. That was what I think we had finalized.
So
Jason,
between
did
the
you-
oak
did you
and the
wanna-
house.
Yes, that's correct. Between the left side of the driveway coming in.
The left side of the driveway. Okay. So,
So that, yep.
what are
So they'd
you
be coming
gonna
off
do
the
to
driveway and
protect
down the
the-
side of the building.
Yeah, what are you gonna do to protect that oak that's at the side of the driveway toward the street?
Yeah, Bob and I talked about that. We had a visit last week. We're gonna throw some steel road plates down over the root mass there, so when we make the turn, we don't rut that out. I think there's maybe one low hanging limb, but it doesn't really look like it needs to be cut back too tightly, so I think putting 2 8-foot by 15-foot road plates over the root structures will keep that tree healthy and happy.
Okay. And are you going to limit how close you get to the trunk?
I think we have a pretty wide berth there. There's probably 30 feet off the corner of the house to the tree. So if our approach was any closer, we would probably find ourselves in the abutters lawn.
Okay,
So I'm really not afraid of getting that close to the tree. I kind of have to stay tight to the lot line there, so I think we'd be clear of it before that came into play.
okay. Chuck,
Um,
does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, soil stockpile or anything like that that we need to address? Are you going to be taking away the stuff you dig out from the pool immediately, or are you going to be saving any of it somewhere for backfilling?
Yeah, no, we can't use the material that comes out of the hole for backfilling the pool, so we generally excavate and load it right on a truck and take it right away. The site is really tight. There's a lot of moving parts there. We don't have any room on site to stockpile any material. So it's just gonna be excavation, right to truck, right to haul away.
Okay. All right, and is there any stormwater retention areas or anything like that proposed, or is none of that needed for this project?
I haven't done a soil sample, but I don't feel that it's necessary at this point. I think the lot's pretty relatively flat. We haven't done any real survey in terms of topography as of yet, so I'm looking at some of the topography lines now. It looks relatively level.
And what
So I
will the paver area be? Will that be pervious or impervious pavers?
They will be impervious.
Okay, and where will the water run from those pavers? Back into the pool or off the side?
No, off the side, and I think that was the idea of having, the plant material around the pool was to help, mitigate the water runoff there.
Okay. All right. Chuck, do you have any thoughts on all of that?
It's just that, so the shed, we don't need infiltration for the shed. And the deck is new. I'm not sure that we've asked for infiltration before with that, so I don't see that there's an infiltration issue here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty clear with my thoughts on the project. I think that they've put together a better plan than we saw at the last meeting. And, just to mention that there was some trash and debris along the BVW, which needs to be part of the cleanup effort of this site. That's all I would say.
Okay, any other members of the commission with thoughts or questions?
No, I think everything's been discussed.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to close? Oh, is there any members of the general public who are here who would like to have a comment or a question? Chuck, maybe take the plan down so we can see any raised hands.
Sure thing.
Use the reaction button and raise your hand with the raise hand function if you have any comments or questions.
Look at Jason's hand.
Okay, seeing none, shall we have a motion to close the hearing?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 52 Loannis.
Carl Sacconi, second.
John, start the vote.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, and this was a notice of intent. Chuck, do we have all the conditions in place that we need, or do we need to review the list?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for everyone to go through the conditions they want on this project, just to make sure that we have them, and then issue as per discussed.
So we had two plants that we were going to swap out, the lilac for a native lilac and the Japanese maple for arborvitae in the pool area. And we were going to decrease the tree count by 2 oaks and 2 maples in the zone of natural vegetation and replace those trees with shrubs. Hopefully that is also a good thing for the homeowners that might save them a little money on the plantings. And what else did we have that we listed?
So we also had to clean up the yard waste in the back. And while they're at the cleanup of the various trash pieces that are in back as well. And ensure there's no stockpiling on site.
Mm-hmm. And protecting the roots of the oak with those large steel plates.
Yes.
Yeah. And anything to protect the trunk too. I feel like the tree might be closer than it might be pretty close. So just when Chuck goes out there, maybe he can make sure it's protected.
Yeah, we do a pre-activity meeting, so you put the erosion control in, have the plates down, and have your sign up, your DEP file number sign, and then we'll do a pre-activity meeting and allow the project to move forward at that point. I did want to ask that a updated plan with the new counts of vegetation, shrubs, and trees on it, so we have something to do the as-built off of, is delivered to the Conservation Commission's office.
Okay.
Not a problem. We'll get that to you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, and just to make sure it's in there, the removal of the multiflora rose when they're doing the plantings out back. I think
We'll note
that
that.
covered everything we talked about. And you've got the erosion control marked on the plot plan already. Yeah. Okay. All right, so can we have a motion to approve this notice of intent?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to approve the notice of intent for 52 Loannis Drive with the listed conditions.
This is Sandy, I'll second that.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Garth Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you very
And
much.
then
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on to 29 Gavin Circle. And open the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Robert and Carla Comenos pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing finished porch and deck and construct a new 14 by 25-foot addition and new deck within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. Additionally, remove the front landing and steps, install new landing and steps, and install a dry well to collect stormwater runoff from the new addition roof. All of the work is within buffer zones to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year. DEP file number, I believe, should be 270-0767, Assessor's Map 51, Lot 160. All right. And do we have people here for that hearing?
Just let Jack Sullivan in and Bob here. I'm gonna let Bob in right now. There you go. Okay. You can turn your video on and unmute yourself. Anyone else, please raise your hand. If not, Jack, take it away. I'll put the plan on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, commission members. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. The owner is with me tonight as well. Just want to give a little history on this lot. Back, I believe in 2013, there was an enforcement order. It was a previous owner at that time. There had been some cutting and filling in the wetland area. And there was extensive work done in reestablishing where the wetland line was, where the protective buffers were. Conservation markers were put in place along the 25-foot no disturb line. So based on the history and how much work went into establishing the wetland line back at that time, myself, the owner, and the builder for this project had talked with Chuck. We thought we could still use the same wetland line that was in effect at that time and proceed with the notice of intent. So as part of the notice of intent, you can see to the rear of the house, there's an existing porch that's going to be raised, and there's a large deck that's going to be raised, and where the addition and the new deck are going are in the same general vicinity. It's over a previously disturbed area. For mitigation, it would be difficult to try to collect the roof runoff from where the proposed addition is going, the 14 by 25-foot addition. There's limited room with the pool and the side lot line. So what I try to do is on the front right side of the house is a downspout that just daylights onto the ground now. So that portion of roof, which is hatched in that yellowish green color, will be collected by that roof drain. It'll be piped underground, and we're showing Cultec units to be placed in that area. They're easier to access. And there's already a downspout to that location, and we pick up a good amount of roof area to mitigate for drainage. Originally, the owner had also looked at doing some work on the front platform and steps out front, but that was eliminated for the project. I think when Chuck read the introduction for this, that may have been included, that they were going to replace that, but I don't think that's going to happen. The owner can correct me if I'm incorrect, but I think that's staying.
That's correct, Jack.
Okay, yeah. So the only proposed work's a 14 by 25 foot addition, the new deck, and the installation of the drainage system. No trees will be cut as part of this project. In the notice of intent, I supplied 6 or 7 colored photos of the yard area. And I did have a talk with Chuck late last week, I believe. 2 of the conservation bounds are inside the 25-foot line. So one recommendation, he can speak on it as well, but to have those bounds reset at the 25-foot line, which I talked to the owner about, and we're fine doing that. So I hope that gives you some history on the project, and I'll turn it over to the commission for any questions you might have.
Okay. Let me just start by mentioning, you talked about the 2 bounds that need to be moved. We think there may be 3. There's
Okay,
1 up near the retaining wall and 2 out near the road.
okay. If there's 3 total, oh, I see the one you're talking about. Yep, that has to be moved as well. So correct, a total of 3 should be moved.
Right.
So we
And
thought this
then-
one should go here, where the 25 meets the retaining wall.
Yep, right at the base of the wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and then also it seems like maybe 1 additional bound could be put at the property boundary where Chuck's got his arrow now.
That's fine. So we'd relocate 3 of them and place a new one at the boundary line where you just talked about. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, I think it was Andrew, Brian and I did a site visit. The homeowners were not home when we knocked on the door, but we had a chance to look at this area. Brian or Andy, do you want to explain any more things that we saw? All right, Brian, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so we let ourselves into the gate on the left-hand side, walked around inside the fence. Then we made our way out through the gate on the right-hand side. We walked along the wall, the retaining wall. And that's where we had first observation that that area at the base of the wall is being maintained, is being mowed. Also, there is a mulch pile, leftover mulch pile in the far back of the retaining wall. It appears that maybe a tractor or something would be going back there to load up the mulch and then bring it around the yard. So given how close that is to the resource and everything, I think that has to be, I know that has to be let go natural. So stop mowing it, no mulch pile storage there, and right up to the base of the wall, that should be let return back to as natural state as possible. Let's see. We talked about the boundaries. We mulch pile. Where are you thinking the construction interest would be?
For the most part, the discussion was to come around the opposite side of the house on the high side, which I think is the gate that you went in. So if
Yes.
you came in the high side and worked around, in talking with Dan McCarthy, the primary access to do all the work would be from up there in that 16'9" stretch to get in and out through that area. There's not a lot of reason to access sort of down in the area on the right. We are getting rid of that stair at that gate that you walked out of and replacing that with a stone wall. But there's not much reason to kind of go down in there. For the most part, in talking with Dan McCarthy, the idea here was to try to stay out of that side yard as best as possible. with the exception of this retention system here.
Yeah, and that would
Um,
have the added benefit of not driving equipment over the place you're gonna put the retention Coltech.
Yes.
So it keeps it from being compacted by the weight. So that's good for that reason as well.
The theory too would be to cut across where it says existing walk and stay tight to our property there. So to cut so that we're not interrupting any curb or anything like that would be to cut through that area there where it says existing walk and make your way around that side of the house to do the work.
Okay, and you planning to have any kind of a stockpile area for any material you're gonna be using to build or what you're taking out?
I don't believe there's really any room to be able to do that. So for me, it would be remove everything. I feel like Dan will feel the same, so I don't think that that's an issue for me to talk to him about, but I don't really see an area to put any stockpile material.
Okay, so we can just add that as a condition to be sure
That's right.
that happens that way. Okay, Martha, I'm all set.
All right, Andy, Brian, no, Brian already went. Andy, Carl, John,
No, I'm good.
and Andy?
Yeah, so Brian reviewed our site visit, and just want to reiterate the area against the retaining wall, where we're talking about the one concrete bound that isn't appropriately placed. So there's a, yeah, that area there's currently lawn / dirt. Just letting that go back to natural vegetation, so not lawn, would be one of the conditions I'd like to see. I think we'll probably have to specify how much area that actually is, but yeah, so Chuck's drawn it. Something in there.
That's not a problem. When we moved in, that was grass. I assumed staying tight to those boundaries was what
Yeah,
the previous owner did. That's why I did it. We don't need that space for anything, and that mulch I can certainly take out of there. That's not a problem at all.
that sounds good. And personally, I do think we should get the bounds set, at least where that one area is set appropriately. The two up front that are off by a couple of feet, I don't know how that works. It's probably going to do more damage than, I mean, obviously it'll recover, but they're not that far off. I don't feel strongly about moving those personally, but if it's not a complex, because I don't think they're like 4 feet deep or something like that. But I do agree we should add one more bound to the edge there, just to seal off the layer. Because I looked at the aerial photographs and the previous owner did a doozy. He really took out a lot of stuff over there. So it's good to see this is somewhat coming back. It's not like what it was from the aerial photo, even in 2012. But so yeah, that's my comment.
So Jack, can you respond to Andrew's question about whether it would damage the vegetation to adjust the location of those two concrete bounds?
I don't think it would. Those bounds are usually about 4 feet in length, and I'm looking at the photos I took, and they look like they're 2 feet out of the ground. So they're probably only 2 feet into the ground.
Okay.
So I think it would be, not
That's
that
not
I want to
bad.
give the owner some work to do, but by then I can see the photos. There's no vegetation in that area that would be impacted. And to get it set on the 25-foot line is probably what the commission would rather see anyways. If it was fully vegetated, they would have to remove vegetation to do so. I'd agree with Andrew. In this case, I think they can be moved.
Good.
Only 2 feet deep. I could do that. I'm not offering my labor, but yeah, that's reasonable.
Okay. All right. So people have talked a bunch about letting the vegetation fill in at the base of the wall where we're moving that one concrete bound. I'd actually like to see actually put some plantings in there. Because if we just leave it be, it might find its way into invasives of some sort. So could we request, I don't know, maybe Carl, you can help me, how many shrubs might be appropriate or ground cover or something, ferns, something to fill in that area so it doesn't just become buckthorn.
Yeah, and then just trying to follow along. I haven't been on the site. And Chuck, which area is that? Near the bounds, right? Or can you?
Oh, sorry. Let me draw that in again for,
I think I saw your red. Yeah, right there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like
And-
maybe.
It
Chuck,
doesn't
if
go
you,
as far down as Chuck drew it the first time. It's just a triangle starting at the bound,
Yeah, where
going
it says
up
wall.
the property boundary and
Yeah.
to the wall, and then over to where the 25-foot line meets the wall.
Yeah, which is I see that I saw what he drew. Okay.
It's that little
Um,
triangle in there.
Chuck, if you have my notice of intent electronically, page 23 of 25, there's a good photo of it.
yeah, sorry, Jack. I'm at my house tonight because I didn't stay at town hall, so I don't have access to those things. So
Okay, not a problem.
hopefully that photo is not needed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is we're extending the 25-foot line to the retaining wall. So therefore, the ZNV, the zone of natural vegetation, which was improperly marked before, now when it's marked correctly, that area that's lawn needs to be turned into a zone of natural vegetation. That's where the planting, whether I drew it larger or smaller, it's just
Yeah.
that grassed area.
Yeah, it's about the width of one car, Carl, at the property boundary going up to a point at the wall.
Yeah, so something like, again, maybe 3 to 5 shrubs would, again, shrubs are always going to be better than the ground cover and the seed mixes, in my opinion. If those each got 4 to 6 foot wide, right? Again, even just from the last meeting, those chokeberries or maple leaf viburnum, something like that, that would get kind of big and bushy, right? That would easily fill that up. So
I believe
say,
that
yeah.
I'm sorry. I believe
Oh,
that
no, go
these
ahead.
existing, I believe that that area that's existing with, you see that bounds, the concrete thing there that's right on the property line, that was put there because of the original report from when the owner previous to us demolished the whole area, was put like that because they wanted to be able to rebuild that stone wall. So they got that layout approved, is what I'm guessing, by the report that they had. We have that report. It's bounced around in email that shows that that area there, they had left that specifically so that they could rebuild that wall and maintain that stone wall. So I think that they did that for a reason. I think that that one that's over there that you folks are saying is misplaced, that was put there for a reason in the previous report that we have. Now, I don't know about the other two that are inside of the line a little bit. But they had put that, and that the reason why that is grass is because they wanted to be able to have access to that wall to be able to rebuild it and maintain it, because it is a stone wall of decent height. It's probably 6 feet tall with a fence on top of it. So I think that those were put there under previous approval is my point. I don't mind necessarily moving it. I'm just trying to explain why it's there.
Chuck, you have a comment on that?
No, I don't think moving the bound is limiting any maintenance on the wall, but picking the right vegetation that goes in there, is probably something that we want to look into. I don't know how much maintenance has to go into the wall now that it's just recently been done. I don't know if it has a vinyl fence on top and it's all been parged. The walls right now is pretty secure. So yeah, but it would, again, for us, it's important to have the bounds on the 25-foot line because for me, when I'm here or for the future, administrator, when they see those bounds, I just hook my tape on it and I measure out another 75 feet. And I know where the 100-foot line is, and it's very accurate throughout town.
No problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Carl, did you want to think about different plans now that there might be, or do you think those will work fine if they get trampled a little bit during some minor construction project, they'll grow back in?
No, I think that's better. Again, I think anytime we can get some kind of woody shrub or tree is better than the ground cover. So I think something like those, again, the last project, just the chokeberries are great, viburnums and things, pepper bush, clethers, whatever it is. Deciduous is fine. They'll handle some, I think the conditions well. And you can just tie them up, aggressively tie them up, do your project, and then cut them loose.
All right. I had a question. Are you going to have a washout station for any of your concrete work?
That is a good question. I think it would stay up high. We could build a box though, and I could put some plastic if you like, up on that side of the house. We could build a 2x6 box with some plastic and lay it down there for a concrete truck. There won't be any pumps. We're gonna do this all out of the truck. So all I gotta worry about is being able to clean the chute and so on. So not only is Dan McCarthy responsible for the job, but I also do this for a living and have done this for over 30 years. So I can talk to Dan about that, and we could put a little box back there with some heavy duty poly at the bottom of it so that we can put it in a dumpster and get rid of it.
And that corner you've pointed to is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, so that's good. What about what kind of footings are the addition going to be supported on?
Sonotubes. So the sonotubes will be pulled back so that they're not inside of that where it says 89 there. There'll be a little bit of an overhang for the deck. So they're sort of right about where that existing stair tops out, with a little bit of an overhang. So sonotube foundations for that.
Okay. So that doesn't require a lot of digging to do that.
No. And we talked about even mixing that concrete by hand to try to, again, stay out of that side of the property with the concrete truck.
Okay. All right. Now, what about the in-ground pool? What kind of decking is going to be around the pool? Is that pervious or impervious?
That pool is existing. All that existing, all that existing concrete that's around the pool stay. It's in really good shape. As you notice on the upper side of the page, the shed over the line and the fence thing, the reason why you may have noticed when you walk that is demoed is the shed. We didn't know the shed was over the property line until we started this project. We went through zoning. Everybody knows about this. We demoed the shed, and we're going to build a little container for the existing pool equipment right as it sits. But just kind of cleaning up that side of the lot a little bit to get rid of, potentially even relocate that fence. Neighbor doesn't seem to care about it, but it is on his property line.
So you might bring the fence back to the property line then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He has said that he does not want that. It's been there for more than 30 years that he's lived there. So I'm kind of leaving that up to him for the time being.
All right.
And it's his fence.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Is there any members of the general public who are here who want to use the raise hand function and question or comment on this project? Chuck, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Thank you. No, I don't. I just, well, actually, just one thing. I think that infiltration area it's important not to compact that soil. And I know the only work you're doing down there is for the infiltration, but if it doesn't happen right away and you're going to start being in that area, a lot of traffic, if you could kind of put some fencing around it just to make sure that it's not compacted. That would be my only suggestion.
And Chuck, are you happy with 12-inch mulch sock as the erosion control?
Yeah, I think this is a project that's really defined by the retaining wall and you know, it would be, I wouldn't mind going out to the site and talk to the owner or the contractor about whether we need mulch sock at all. I mean, if there's a lip on the retaining wall that's above the grade, it seems to me that that would prevent a lot of activity. I don't know how close they're digging to the retaining wall on the, I guess it's the deck or the addition side, but it seems to be that we have a barrier there now. So yes, mulch sock if it's needed, that's what we asked for. But with that opportunity to discuss it prior to them purchasing the mulch sock, I'd be fine with it.
Does that make sense to the homeowner and Jack, do you understand what Chuck has asked for?
I do. And the only reason really is it was more for when we excavate for the drainage system that the mulch sock should be in place. I agree with Chuck during demo and other stuff, everything's up gradient of that wall, but when they're doing the work with the drainage system and digging in that area, there should be something in place.
Yeah, and mulch sock in that area would be fine.
Okay. All right. Is there going to be a construction dumpster on site?
There should be a construction dumpster on site. I would imagine it's on my side of the driveway, which would be the furthest side of the driveway. If you were out there, it would be adjacent that downspout. I don't see that it can go anywhere else. This power line's sort of immediately adjacent that come into the house, and I don't want it on that far area of grass next to the wetlands. So, and there's no real spot out front. So I'm guessing it's in the spot of the driveway immediately adjacent to that downspout.
Okay, so, but parked right on the driveway on the pavement.
Yes, yeah. I don't see it being anywhere else.
All right, any last questions from anyone?
I should state one just quickly. During the demo, it'll probably be on adjacent on the top side of the property. As you walked in through the left, it'll likely be up there during the demo to get the demo debris in there. During the actual construction phase, we'll probably have a construction dumpster in the driveway.
Okay. All right. Are we all questions answered? Okay, and this is a notice of intent, so can I have a motion to close the hearing?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 29 Gavin Circle.
This is Andy. I'll second that.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Arthur Moore in favor. Okay, and do we have a motion on this notice of intent?
So I forget what that motion would look like. What would be?
Approve, issue,
Issue, okay.
approve.
This is Brian. I'm making a motion that we issue notice of intent for 29 Gavin Circle with the conditions of moving the markers as we discussed, doing the plantings along the base of the wall as we discussed, no stockpile, and the construction dumpster being on the driveway.
Except for when it's next to the pool.
Fair enough.
Okay, and I think, what number of shrubs were we proposing that they put in at the base of the wall. Were we asking for 5 shrubs there or only 3 or 4?
I'll leave that.
I hit to, yeah, I hit to 3 to 5. I think if it's just, let's go with 3, because I think if they're something, you know, again, in that kind of 4 to 6 foot range, eventually that's times 3, you know, you're going to fill up that space. So I think that's nice.
Okay. Chuck, are there any more conditions you think we didn't mention that we need to mention? And you're muted.
Just that if they're going to access the right-hand side of the project and they need to protect the infiltration area, and that they're going to provide a washout station for concrete, and they're going to use mulch sock in that lower infiltration area for erosion control when they do the digging.
Okay.
And the mark is going to be, we already talked about that. So yeah, Brian, with that, we have everything.
Okay. And motion to approve is what we wanted, or motion to?
So we need a motion to issue a notice of intent for 29 Gallon Circle as discussed.
Okay, and that's DEP file number 270-0767. Assessors map 51, lot 160. Do we have a second?
Well, someone says I'll make that motion, and then you
Oh,
ask for a
no,
second.
Brian already did make that motion. We
Oh,
were just
okay.
clarifying
Oh,
what
thank
word
you.
he used. Yep, he made that motion. But I think he
I
said,
thought you were elevating me to member of the commission.
No, no,
Sorry.
no,
Back-
Wouldn't that be nice?
back
I
to
was
our regularly
asking
scheduled
you
program.
whether we should approve or issue the notice of intent, and you
Okay,
said
so
we
moving
should issue.
along.
So
we need a
Brian had
second.
it right.
We need a
Well,
second.
this is Andy. I'll second that.
Thank you, Andy. John, vote.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank-
Jack. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Our next one is 104 Lila Lane.
Yeah, so again, if you raise your hand, if you're here for that, I know Liz Wallace is here, but anyone else with you, Elizabeth? And you have co-host permissions. Oh, there you go, Peggy. Hi. There you go. And Chris, sure. Co-host. Okay, you all should be able to control your screens. So Elizabeth, you all set? Yep.
Hi, I'm not in, I'm not.
Yeah, it says for John Barrows.
Oh, geez, really? Sorry, John, I'll make some changes here.
Let me text it.
There you go.
All set?
Yeah. Wasn't trying to give you any extra work there, John.
No problem. All right, thanks, Chuck. Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is John Barrows. I'm the engineer for the project.
Okay, hold on. I think I didn't read the blurb yet, and I need to do that to be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we were
Okay, I
just
jumped
trying to
the
get
gun.
everybody in the right window now. Okay, 104 Lila Lane, open the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Chris Calvani pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Bylaw. Section 7.1, the applicant proposes to construct a 700 square foot in-ground pool and appurtenances at an existing single-family property. All of the work is within buffer zones to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office and on the Conservation Division webpage under the project by year. DEP file number 270-0766, Assessors map 55, lot 30. All right, thank you. Now you're on, John.
All right, thank you. Again, my name is John Barrows. I'm the engineer for the project. With me tonight is Chris Cavani, the homeowner. And as was just read, Chris is hoping to construct a in-ground pool in the rear of his property. Maybe I could have I don't know if you want to share my screen.
Oh, if you want to share your screen, it's fine. I already I have the plan up, but you can share your screen too. What do you want to do, John?
Why don't you share my screen in case I need to? I'm sorry, I got the wrong.
Sure, I'll take mine down. Go ahead.
Can you see that okay?
Not yet.
Yeah, it's maybe Chuck, if you just want to put it up on yours, it's giving me some error messages on my end here.
Okay. Chuck's pretty good at following with his arrow when people tell him where to point to.
Okay. So as I mentioned, Chris is hoping to construct a in-ground pool along with a impervious pool deck around the pool. He's also planning on putting in a above-ground hot tub along with some pool equipment to support the pool. All of the work is going to take place in the buffer zone. None of the work will be inside the 35 no build or the 25-foot no disturb buffers. As you can see on the plan, we have the edge of the wetland of the BBW designated with some stakes in the back there. It's a pretty conservative line. It's in front of a row of excuse me, existing arborvitaes, and basically the edge of the existing lawn. All of the backyard is pretty much manicured lawn. There is also a small shed within the no disturb area. That is going to be relocated up towards the back of the driveway to compensate for the additional impervious, which is about a little bit less than 1,800 square feet all told. We're proposing a stormwater recharge system that would we felt was probably better for the site to be put at the end of the driveway. We've got a little curbing there that would catch the entire driveway, excuse me, along with about half of the roof and a portion of the front yard. And that would go into a catch basin with a little sump in it that would drain into an underground Caltech recharge system, built in an envelope of stone. As far as other things that are proposed, there's going to be a fence around the property. There's no vegetation being taken down. This is all manicured lawn in the back. And some of the pool equipment that Chuck's highlighting over there, that would be pretty much outside the 100-foot buffer. We will have erosion control. We're planning on using straw wattles, which would be just up gradient of the 35-foot no build. That pretty much sums it up. To hand it back to the commission for questions, comments.
Okay, some of us did a site visit here. I believe that nobody answered when we knocked on the door at this house either. Is there anybody who came on the site visit who wants to give a description of what we saw? Andrew.
Sure. So yeah, Brian, Martha, and I visited. I don't remember what it was, a few days ago, and we could see there was no snow on the ground because there's no snow this winter for some reason. So you can see the yard. It's currently largely grass. There's a trampoline in the backyard, and then towards the back near the wetlands, there's a shed, which is noted on the plan that will be relocated. And then between, as the engineer, Chris, as I mentioned, John, there is a row of arborvitaes that separates the yard, the grassy yard, from the wetlands. So when you look at the site plan, we were trying to follow some of the easement lines. There's some stakes in the ground that we saw the easement line, which is, I think, is for the drainage area behind the arborvitae, and try to get a sense of where the pool is going to be, and everything is substantially, by our guesstimates, farther away from the 35-foot no-build zone. So we're not really going to have that discussion, at least. Other than that, that was all we really saw. We have other things we could discuss. I mean, one thing just quickly for the shed, there's some like little footings and gravel underneath it. So when it's relocated, I'm assuming we'll be moving the stuff underneath the shed as well. I guess was one question.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll clear that up and I mean, we can do grass there, I assume, or plantings.
Given that it's in the 25-foot zone, it would be good to have plantings in that area.
Yeah, I mean, you probably noticed the damaged abrevieties from a snowstorm a couple years ago. I want to get replacement abrevieties in that back corner, or some kind of growth there to close in what's currently lost, if you will, and I can build out that space to include shrubs.
Is that the arborvitae that we saw with a couple of cables and
my very ingenious cable system? Yes. So I'm trying to save them, to be honest with you. I think I'm probably out of luck, but I will, those straps will be replaced with some wires to try to hold those up, because they provide some great privacy, but I think I'm going to lose them and just replace them with some other my challenge, and maybe someone on the call could help me, is to try to find an abrevieties species that's not also deer food. We've had, you probably noticed, the lower part of all of those abrevieties are gone, except for the ones that are closest to the house, which I think is a different species, and I'd like to kind of maybe find that, but that's the story down there.
I think that the plants closer to the house looked like hemlock to me and not arborvitae.
Okay.
That may be your answer.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I'm in not so far away from you, more or less the same neighborhood, and the deer do a number on our shrubs.
Yeah.
The only other solution is to wrap them in burlap, like the people at the corner of Mill Street do.
Yep.
Or deer netting, which is more invisible but plastic.
Right.
But maybe you'd like some native hemlocks along there rather than arborvitae, if you want to. If the hemlocks aren't getting eaten and the arborvitae are, that might be a solution.
All right. Thank you.
And I'm just noticing that the next door neighbor, it doesn't say who they are. Oh, here they are. 98 Lila, the wetland in their backyard comes up to about the same place as your 25-foot buffer no disturb line. And I'd love to see as much native planting in that 25-foot zone as possible. I don't know if you were listening in when we were talking to the swimming pool, golf teeing, green.
I wanted to go back to my plan and maybe change some things, but I don't think I could afford it.
I don't know that you have room for a golf putting area.
That was a great yard. I texted John. I'm like, wow, look at that.
But maybe you have room for
Dream
some
yard.
of their maples, oaks, shrubs, things like that back at the backside of the property.
Absolutely.
And where you're going to be removing the shed and doing some work back there, it might be an opportunity to.
I mean, I'm almost thinking where the shed is located, we could kind of cut that corner right there and make that plantings if it makes sense. I think it actually would kind of make the back end of the yard look much nicer too.
Yeah, maybe a couple of more trees. You've got the 1 20-inch tree in the middle, but a couple of more native trees, oaks, red maples, things like that might be nice back there.
Any suggestions on that, that would not potentially get too tall? Are there, I mean, I'm all about planting trees, so, I mean, if we could find something that I could put there, that would not get so tall that it would create kind of a monstrosity, I'd be game for that for sure.
Put some river birches.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe a dogwood, flowering dogwood, not Coosa dogwood, but the native flowering dogwoods aren't so tall.
Okay.
Paul, do you have any other suggestions of trees that are not 80 feet tall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Chris, you know, a little bit of research into some maples and things. Maples are going to be better than the oaks because they won't get typically as tall. And then again, like Martha said, anything ornamental, the service berries, the dogwoods, red buds will stay sort of 20 feet ish, you know, 25 feet. So
Redbud's a good idea. Yeah.
And I would suggest, just a side note, off topic, but the hemlocks are not faring well with this climate coming, but maybe something like another spruce of some kind might be a nice evergreen hedge for you.
Okay. Do deers like the spruce or no?
No, they won't like them as much as the arborvitae, but the hemlocks might not last very long. So
that's scary because that's a great wall of hemlocks I have right now.
Yeah.
So you said I have red buds and spruce for the kind of privacy evergreens. Maples, you said, and then John, you had referenced one.
I just called out river birches.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then there was one, I think.
Flowering dogwood was the other one you mentioned.
Okay.
And the red bud is not a privacy hedge. It's a deciduous tree, but it makes beautiful pink flowers in the spring. So if you want some pretty flowers, you've got the flowering dogwood, and the red buds would look very nice in the spring, but they're both deciduous.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for that.
All right, there's a little stone garden in the back right corner of the property inside the 25-foot zone. Do you have any plans for that area?
Yeah, so those were so that was a resting place for a bunch of grasses that we didn't want to lose that were sitting in the driveway. If you look at the pool to the right, you'll see the jumping rock there. Our hope was to get, because if you're coming down the street from the cul-de-sac area, there's kind of a straight shot view into the backyard. So we're probably going to put some plantings to the right of the jumping rock outside the fence line to try to create some privacy there. So that's where those are going to go. And I could put back that back corner to natural.
Okay. And that area is inside the 100-foot buffer zone. So in that area too, you'd want to be sticking with some native plants. So native shrubs, native grasses, things like that in that area.
Okay. You wouldn't happen to know what I had planted there. Did you guys recognize that as native?
They looked like a grass to me, but I couldn't possibly tell you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe in the spring, Carl could take a look at it and be able to identify it for you.
Carl, I'll send you a leaf.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, if you're buying any shrubs to go along that area, there's a native shrubs and plantings list on the conservation website that you can pick from.
All right, I'll go there then.
Okay. Brian, you have your hand up.
Actually, Andy had his first.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So one thing I didn't realize is how deep your yard is. So behind the arborvitae, and this is something we could discuss with Chuck, because it's not just on your property, but technically it looks like some of it is. There are some invasives, Phragmites specifically, that are overtaking that wetlands back there. It's over my head about what to do with that. But I just want to note that I did notice that, and I assumed it wasn't in your yard, but I didn't realize how deep your site goes. So it is in your yard. Yeah, just wanted
Yep,
to know
that whole drain easement is filled up with Phragmites in that yard and the next two neighbors over.
Yeah,
Is that it, Andrew?
that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, okay. So we talked already about moving the shed and moving what's underneath it. That's important. That has to be done.
Yep.
Additionally, behind the shed, there's the remains of a pallet that will have to be moved as well. Additionally, in the very back corner, near where it says stake 1 in that area, there's a number of boards that are just left on the ground. Those need to be removed. Addition to trampoline, the trampoline is too close to the wetlands. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you have children, and how old are they?
Yeah, they are 14 and 16.
Okay,
Boys.
in the past, what we've done in similar situations is we've got a condition in where when the children get old enough, then the trampoline would be moved at that point. So if you were willing to move it now, that'd be better. If you wanted to leave it there for a few more years while they aged out, that would be, we could add that as a condition.
Okay, that's fine.
Which do you prefer?
I mean, right now it would be in the way of the pool, so I'll just move it when right before we put it in, over to the right, away from the buffer zone.
Okay.
So
You're
near
right,
where
though.
you're going to be putting your proposed shed location?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between the pool and there. But I'll tell you now that the days are numbered on that, no matter what, right? So I have a 14 and 16-year-old, so I don't see that having a lot of activity much more over the next year or year and a half.
Yeah, so make a condition that in that time period, then you have it moved by then at the latest.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be
And that
great.
includes the stone underneath it as well.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe you said it and I didn't hear it. Where are you expecting your construction entrance?
Through the driveway.
The driveway side.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Right side of the
That makes
house.
sense. And what about any stockpiling of materials from the pool or what have you?
Yeah, so there's some metal that will probably be dropped off before the construction of the pool. And that likely will go just around, like just to the left or right of the proposed pool, because they don't want to move it and dig. So they'll place it in a location. I'll keep it in front of that 35-foot line, and likely to the left of the pool between the stone wall and the pool.
So are you going to be keeping the soil there? Is that what you were just saying?
No, it's actually, it's a steel framed pool, and the steel gets dropped off prior to the pool being constructed.
Yeah.
That's what would be laid there.
So what about the soil that you dig out before you can put the pool?
I would anticipate that leaves when it gets dug.
So it would leave at the same
Yeah.
depth, basically.
Yep.
Okay, so that will be a condition as well.
Okay.
Okay, I'm all set, Martha.
Okay, there's a black corrugated pipe in between stakes 2 and 3 behind the arborvitae.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea what that pipe is? It's more or less where the 58.8 feet 8 inch arrow is pointing to the arborvitae. There's a black pipe in there.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay. You may find that you find the beginning of it when you're digging out the pool soil.
Yep.
Do you have a sump pump in the basement?
No.
Okay, so that's not a sump pump drain.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
you have a walkout in the back, Chris, right? So that basically your basement level is that grade back there. So I don't, I don't see any kind of footing drain going either through that. It might just be a sub drain for the backyard or something like that that was put in just to, dry things up.
Well, it'll be interesting if you find the beginning of it when you're digging out the pool.
I'll ask John what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do we do if we find the beginning of it, Martha? We don't
No,
want to keep draining the yard to the wetlands. That I think is the
No.
important thing.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why I would have to, it could be discontinued. If it, you know, if there was some type of stone trench there or something, there shouldn't be any need to have it.
Okay.
Okay, those are all my questions. I think everybody else has had a chance to ask questions, except Chuck. Have you got any more thoughts, comments? What do we do with the Phragmites?
Yeah, I'd like to see those Phragmites gone as much as anybody. I just think it's a daunting task, and they extend beyond this property and into all the other properties. And typically, you know, if the neighbors got together and hired a firm to remove those, you would have an awesome view, and you'd be a lot happier with that view. And it's something that the commission, you know, would definitely entertain. But I think just, you know, removing some without removing all of them is just going to be a reoccurring nightmare, and they're going to grow back in. They should be prevented from going into the yard, but I don't think I would, you know, approve any kind of herbicides for that, because it seems like it's working now. Vegetated buffer strip against that back line of abrevieties would be great, and you could maintain that line. That's my thought on it. I mean, anyone can take that and run with it, but I do think that it extends into many of the yards back there. I only was going to mention that when the metal material comes in, just like I had done before, I'm concerned about compacting the infiltration area, and that should be marked out and kind of avoided when that deliveries happen. Now, I don't know if they're walking the metal in or a truck's going over there, assuming it's a truck or something like that. So that's why I mentioned that.
I mean, is there a better location for the, I mean, I'm guessing on the metal. Would it be best to maybe place it to the left of the shed? Maybe drive around that location where the green is the best possible and then drop it by the shed, still within the easement? I guess I'm trying to do the most.
Oh, you mean where the shed exists now, or where it's being
No,
proposed?
where it's gonna be, like the least invasive place possible, because we could come straight down the driveway, hug that right.
Oh, it's not the metal itself. Once it's where you want to place it, that's fine. I just want the activity to get it from the driveway to
Oh, I see what
the
you're saying.
left-hand side of the pool to avoid the area that's going to be for infiltration, because if you compact that soil, it's not going to work as well.
Yeah, I think if we stake it off, you have room to avoid it, I believe. So we can stake it off, you know, during construction.
Good.
Sure. That's all.
Thanks.
So do we have a sense of how much planting is going to happen in the 25-foot zone? We've talked about it a little, but we haven't really got a set of numbers. And usually for the conditions, it's nice to have, as you've heard on the other things, 3, 5, 18, 16, you know, whatever. We talked species, but we didn't talk numbers.
Yep.
So Martha, what do you, are you talking the entire 25-foot zone, or you're proposing a strip of the 25-foot zone? Can you let us know about that before we get into the numbers?
I think we were talking about, Chuck, the back left-hand corner of the property where the shed is, to try to replace that with vegetation within the 25 zone. I had plans to do some plantings of large evergreens of some sort, and I could even think about a tree in that space and some shrubs.
So like
back
in this area here?
Exactly, back right, back left corner. And there is like kind of an open space there now that I do want to close for privacy purposes. So it's going to serve multiple, it'll be a good thing overall.
And then I think we had talked about some trees elsewhere in the 25-foot zone to start to fill in some of that. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to get a sense of, what the commission would want and what the homeowner would be interested in when we were talking red buds and dogwood and things like that. And river birch, are we talking one of each, two of each in that back area, or understory as well? Any comments from members of the commission? Andrew?
So Martha, just to clarify, what are we talking about? So it's like we have a whole 100-foot strip there basically in the backyard that's currently grassy that we're talking about trying to get more of a natural vegetation to be that buffer. So not just the arborvitae, because right now I think it's arborvitae and then we have grass with the shed and a little stone garden on the opposite sides of the yard. But we're talking about that whole strip of the backyard. Yeah. Is that what you're referring to, Martha?
That's the area that's in play, yes.
Yeah. And how much planting do we think is needed?
Right. So we have the example of 52 Luanus that decided to plant that entire buffer zone with shrubs and trees, and quite a few trees. I would like to see maybe not as many plantings as they had, but more plantings than there are now. But Carl, Andrew, John, Brian, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, if we decide to do the 100-foot lawn strip there, even if the arborvitaes are there, it seems like it's just from pictures I've seen and, like, you know, Google Earth. I mean, if we did 25 foot on center, that'd be like 4 trees. So maybe 4 new trees, and then, you know, something like, again, 3 to 5 of those kind of bushy, woody shrubs would be nice. Right?
Okay.
That wouldn't feel too cluttered is the point. That's a nice kind of 25 feet.
And that's a strip of, like, a vegetated buffer strip along this edge. I'm just going to draw a green line across it. Is this the area we're talking about? And it's just undefined that how much you want there. So, you know, I just wanted to offer the applicant, typically in these areas with the pool going in, they want to leave a little lawn area open for throwing a ball or something like that. And it wasn't mentioned, so I wanted to mention that also. And I felt like maybe that's why the applicant was trying to push it over towards the shed size, the shed area.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a choice, there's a pretty large tree already there in the center of the backyard. Those branches, I'm sure you've noticed, spread pretty broadly. So anything close to that tree would look kind of, I don't know, I'd prefer to keep it to the left and right. So maybe there's 2 trees and some plantings, because I'm going to pull up those, the slabs of stone on the right and the grasses. And I'm also going to take the shed out. So I was thinking of replacing those 2 areas with, you know, it would look nice with a couple trees, knowing that the center tree is already there. And then some plantings there as well. Remember, I'm going to be doing the hemlocks or whatever, non-deer eating evergreens, hopefully to close in the gap that's currently there as well. So I would like to control cost, but still make it pretty. But also there's a fair amount of that tree in the center. I just don't want to take away from it because it is beautiful.
Yeah, so Chuck, I'm picturing not so much a line up against the arborvitae, but as he said, you know, a clump over on the right and a clump over on the left, coming closer to the 25-foot line.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, something more like that.
And so get rid of this red area and just
No,
put a
keep
clump.
that red area. That red area is one clump.
Okay,
And maybe make your blue smudge a little bigger on the other side. Yeah,
all right.
something like that. And then he's got the
Beautiful.
big, beautiful tree in the middle. So, you know,
That looks good.
you've got your evergreens on the
Andrew, I'm gonna let you
property
draw
boundary.
anytime you want. I see you smiling when I'm trying to use this thing, but
I think the point's clear though, Chuck. I'm seeing it.
Trouble staying in the lines, huh, Chuck?
We'll stake that off tomorrow.
Okay, so you've got evergreens along the property boundary,
Yeah.
hopefully ones the deer won't eat. You've
Correct.
got maybe 2 of your red bud, river birch, dogwood choices over there near the evergreens where the shed came out, and another 2 of those sort of trees over in the green smudge. And if you wanted to put some native understory underneath those trees, that would be lovely.
Okay.
So
Can
four,
I?
4 trees total, 2 on either side, and then understory.
Plus
Yeah.
the evergreens on the,
The evergreens in the back, right?
Yeah.
Can I trade? Can I do 1 tree on either side and trade 1 tree for 2 more shrubs? Isn't it 2 for 1?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's still fair.
Will that work? Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Cool.
And I would just so again, we're not designers here, but you mentioned the river birch for something not maybe getting super tall, Chris.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
the
I
river birch-
didn't say it, but
Oh, sorry, it was proposed, but I think that you would find that it would grow
I
like a
just-
weed and be 60 feet tall before you know it.
okay, I'm taking that off my list. Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe go with a dogwood, regular flowering dogwood and red bud.
A flowering dogwood
Yeah.
and
And Chuck, do we want to? Should we just? He can propose what he wants. Should we just see a plan of that for the next, or just?
Yeah.
Just in our condition, we'll just so.
What are you saying there, Carl? This is not good enough.
Yeah, no, it's great. So I'm
I
saying.
mean, the
I know
vision
we
is
want-
clear to me, but
I'm saying I know Martha. We don't want to plan it for him, so he can, so we can move on from that. So.
yeah, can it be part of the conditions that I do it?
Yeah. So provide
Okay.
a planting plan.
Okay.
I don't know at what time within. I would say within a month.
Mhm.
Can you do
Yeah,
that?
I don't think I need to wait even that long. I mean, I'm gonna put.
I'm just thinking about getting back to one of our meetings. So we'd only have 2
Oh.
meetings between that month. So you could do it for our next meeting, which is the 8th,
Okay.
and just present it to me, and I'll let the commission review it at the meeting.
Okay. And so a condition is I still have to come back if it's a condition.
No, you just
Okay.
have to provide the planting plan. If we want to change it, we'll make the changes and send it back to you.
Perfect.
I can
Got
just
it.
add it to this plan, right? Chuck, that,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, any members of the general public here who have questions, comments on this project? If you have comments or questions, use the raise hand function in the reaction button at the bottom. Seeing none. Chuck, do you have any other things we need to discuss on this project?
No, we have a bunch of conditions, and I think the planting plan with the native species will be very helpful for when I write the order of conditions. I would like to ask that, since you think you can deliver that pretty quickly, John, I think once I receive that, I'll start putting together the order of conditions. Okay?
Yeah, I can get that to you next week sometime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Chuck, it looks like we might be making a big pile of work for you. We've got another one that we could close tonight.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Anybody want to make a motion to close this hearing?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 104 Lila Lane.
Andy, I'll second.
John Sullivan.
You're in favor, John? Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, have we spelled out the conditions clearly enough, or do we need to go through the list, Chuck?
So the list I have is remove the pallet and boards, the back corner, and then a list of proposed plantings, but I think we'll wait for the planting plan for that. For when we asked for erosion control, I wanted a mulch sock and putting in a pretty substantial pool and whatnot. So I usually ask for silt fence also, but you could do mulch sock and construction fence. The orange construction fence would be fine, but not the hay and the straw wattle. Stay off of the infiltration area and stake that out, and then update the plan. And then I guess there was discussion about black corrugated pipe, but it sounded like if you found that, you're going to, I don't know, talk to the engineering department if you think it's necessary for removing that. Because I think that would be in the easement area.
Yeah, it sticks into the easement area between
Yeah.
arborvitae.
Yeah.
And another condition is the one on removing the trampoline in a couple of years when the kids age out.
Okay.
Let me
Yep.
just set a no more than 5 years on the trampoline. That
Sure.
sound reasonable?
Oh,
I
yeah.
was thinking a couple, 3, but any number as long as you put it in there as adhered to is fine.
Yeah,
That's-
so the sooner the better, perhaps, but you know, it's nice to have a firm goal, you know?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Chris, does 5 sound like an outside limit for you? Sound okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right, any other conditions? All right, can we have a motion on,
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to issue the NOI for 104 Lida Lane. with the detailed list of conditions we just laid out.
Carl Sacconi second.
John Sullivan in
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor? Okay,
All right, thank you, everyone. Like I said, when the plan gets to me, I will, if you get that out to me next week, I could probably get that order of conditions out by the end of the week or the beginning of the following next week.
Great.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
you're welcome. Bye now.
you.
See ya.
Yeah.
All right, our next hearing is 18 Libby Ave. Do we have people here representing 18 Libby Ave?
Yes, I think we brought him up before. So
Okay.
it's Elizabeth Wallace, and I'm just getting the plan ready for when we start. And I'll give those permissions. So if you want to just start reading, I can
I'll
get
start
my
reading.
act together here.
Okay, 18 Libby Ave, open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by John Burns under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing shed and garage. The area will be landscaped for soil stabilization and aesthetics with 6 wildlife-friendly shrubs. The existing chain link and vinyl fencing will restrict construction activities on the lot. All of the work is within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Conservation Office at the Town Hall and on the Conservation Division webpage under Current Project Assessors Map 23, Lot 175, RCC file number 2003-06. And you've got the plot plan up. All right. I drove by and just did a look from the street today. Did anybody else do any site visits?
No.
Okay, yeah. It seems pretty straightforward. They're removing a garage and replacing it with 6 shrubs. Do we have, oh, when we have names on the shrubs, some of them are dogwoods and some of them are SB, whatever SB is.
Serviceberry.
Okay, Serviceberry.
I'll find it on the plan.
Yeah.
Just to make
There we
sure.
go. Yep, Serviceberry and red osier dogwood.
Okay. So Elizabeth's here from Hayes Engineering. Maybe she wants to present the project also.
Okay.
Good evening. You practically made my presentation. So
Sorry.
yeah, we are focusing on this triangular property. As you saw, there's a house and detached garage with a driveway leading up to the garage. The remainder of the property is lawn. There is a wetland offsite over by A Street, which has a wetland off of it. The property is approximately 70 feet off of the wetland. We estimated the distance using the town GIS, and a couple of the abutting neighbors were kind enough to let me on their property to visually estimate where the wetland was. The town GIS shows the boundary 70 feet off the property boundary. I think the wetland is probably significantly lower, maybe 20 to 25 feet lower than shown on the GIS. We have shown both boundaries. We also have shown the 100-foot boundary, which is at the front of the garage. So our project is to remove the garage and all associated structures, including the shed. I believe the shed is up on blocks or something, so that will just come down. The area that remains from taking out the garage will be landscaped, probably with grass to match the rest of the landscaping on the lot. And we'll add a number of bushes within that area. There might be additional landscaping done by the future homeowner, but the bushes we have added to the plan will provide a little bit of privacy to that area of the lawn. These are taller type bushes, and they'll provide a little bit of buffer between the houses. The lot is surrounded by developed lots. Houses are very close to the property line. One house is actually between our lot and the wetland line. So we believe that the work will not have any significant impact on the wetland. We are out of the 25-foot zone of natural vegetation and the 35 no build. So we're only in the 70 to 100-foot buffer zone. I think that about sums it up, and I'll hand it back to the commission for any questions.
And just to point out, our jurisdiction ends at the 100-foot buffer zone line. So we really have no jurisdiction in the area where that proposed building is. Is that correct?
There might be just a very small bit of corner that might be within, maybe 98 feet into the buffer zone. But otherwise, most of the lot is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay, any questions or comments from the commission? Brian? You're muted.
So the first one I have is, how do you intend to handle the material from the demo?
I imagine that there'll be a dumpster on site and the material will be placed in there and removed from the site. I am with the owner of the property, John Burns, and maybe he wants to chime in on that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so everything will be removed, right away from the site if you approve the demo, and it'll be taken out the same day that the garage is taken down.
And how would you access the areas to remove that material?
So the house would come down first, and then the garage would be taken down and removed at that point.
Okay. That's all I have, Martha, right now.
Okay. Anybody else? Chuck? how
Yeah, I
about you?
had a question. John or Libby, that tree that says interpreted as side yard, I think that's what it says. Is that staying? Do you see it? It cuts through the 100-foot buffer, that tree. It looks like it's gonna be close to the proposed house. I was wondering what the intention with that tree is. Here, it's here.
Yeah, I believe we're keeping it. John, any thoughts?
We can keep it if you'd like us to. That's not an issue.
Yeah, and if it looks like after things get built or any part of that project where you think it needs to come down, if you would consider trimming it first, before you decide you want to take it down. If you wanted to take it down, you'd have to come back and just ask for a minor plan change for that, and then that would have to go through the same process with the commission taking a look at the tree. And so I'm happy you're not taking it down, and hopefully you can find some other options if it becomes close to the proposed house. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck. It would be nice to save that tree if we can. Okay, anybody else? Any members of the general public here to make comments on this project? Doesn't look like we have anybody left. Okay, this one is a request for determination. So can we close this hearing?
Yes.
This is Brian. Make a motion to close the hearing on 18 Libby Ave.
Andy, I'll second that.
John Sullivan,
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, and then we want a negative determination of applicability for this project to go forward.
This is Brian. I'll make a motion for a negative determination for 18 Libby Ave.
I will second that. Andy,
John Sullivan,
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. And we put conditions on there of trying to protect the tree. Anything else?
I think there was a question about how things were moved off the site, and that was, daily. So any of the debris, any of the destruction from the house and the garage will be moved off the site daily.
Or was there going to be a construction dumpster there?
That's what John, you want to clarify that? I think John said that it'll be moved off daily, but any clarification on that, John Burns?
It'll be taken up the same day, and as they take the house down, it's normally they're taken down. It's normally the same. So that's what all the
Okay.
they
Okay.
do.
All right, Chuck, you were right. Sorry. Okay. Those were all our conditions. We voted. We're done with that hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Livy. Thanks, John.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a
Yeah.
good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night now.
Good night. All right. Now we
Okay,
need to let in the applicant for 68 Longfellow Road. Anybody
Yeah.
else here with you, Carl?
No.
Okay.
Carl, can you just say that, you're not going, when you're presenting this
Yeah.
project, that you're not going to be part of the conservation, do the recuse yourself for this.
Yes, so Carl Ciccone, I'll recuse myself from the 68 Longfellow deliberation.
Yeah, so you can present the project that's your own house. Okay. Let's get the plan. Let's get the plans up, and Carl, you can bring us along.
And I'll read the blurb. 68 Longfellow Road, open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Carl Ciccone under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to build a two-story addition with a wraparound porch and sunroom on helical piers. The project is located on the front and west side of the existing house. Portions of the work are within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office and on the Conservation Division page under Current Project, Assessor's Map 27, Lot 325, RCC file number 2023-05. And here we are.
All right. Shall I go?
Sure.
All right. So yes, we are proposing a two-story addition on the north and that west, or the front yard, the west side of the property. So the darker sort of, gray area is the actual addition. The difference between that and the lighter gray is that will have a full foundation underneath. It's about 8 feet or so offset off the house. And the lighter gray that sort of wraps around is like a 5 foot wide sort of farmer's porch around there. And that will be proposed to be 3/4 of it is covered. So like the front side of the house is covered. So I've included that into my drainage calculation for the roof water. I also understand that partial, parts of the roof are not in the 100-foot buffer, but I've just basically at this point the calculations for one sort of Caltech unit, so it's either I'm just sort of proposing to collect all those gutters. Where else do I go? So I'm proposing one tree to be removed. It's mostly already, as someone said tonight, like manicured lawn area. There's a couple of ancient yew bushes that will be removed. I'm proposing 3 new native trees to go back to be planted within the 100-foot buffer on the north side of the property. Yeah, I don't know what else am I missing. Oh, and the sunroom is just on, like the deck is just going to be on piers or helical piers. It's not heated or insulated. It's literally just more of a again an extension of the deck. We're just going to kind of close that in. So the decking in the sunroom will be on helical piers, which will really limit debris. Again, some of them aren't even kind of in that buffer zone. So we're about, from my estimation, from the east side, the rear of the property, about 80, what is it, 86 roughly feet to the sunroom. And from the north side, you know, into the 90-foot-ish, you know, away. And I think the commission on the site visit even felt that on the north side of the property where I have my resource area from below was even probably, you know, a little conservative, meaning it's probably even further back into that woodland area. There was no, you know, wetland flags to kind of be seen in there if it had ever been delineated before, but so access would just be really from my driveway at that south side. We're planning on staying in the house for the first few weeks of construction, but then actually moving out so that we can just sort of give them free rein to, you know, park up top and just sort of move at their own pace here. We've got a stake, straw stake, kind of wrapping from an existing wall on the top tier all the way basically to the street side, right in front of the existing white pines in that area, which is also where I've proposed my drainage system. I think that's the gist, right? I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, but oh, I did talk to the contractor about the fill. So, and I can revise this plan to show something on here, but his plan is to try to keep as much of the topsoil on site as possible to use, right? Just basically from the machine coming in, you know, the debris from the, or not the debris, but just the kind of the foundation work. So there will be, I would estimate something where like, you know, 5 to 8 yards, hopefully is all he'll need of maybe topsoil to reuse. And then for the fill, I do think may be staged for a couple of weeks, like maybe half of it. I would think he's happy to truck out probably at least 50% of the fill, but he will backfill, right? The foundation wall, which he guesstimates, you know, something like maybe 50% or 40% of the fill could be kind of used back on the property, or just to backfill. So there would be a staging, you know, once those walls are up is what he'd like to do. So that's what he was saying. So I think that's the gist.
Okay. And so if he is stockpiling some soil on the property, I think we would want to be sure that that soil doesn't erode
right
into the wetlands. So maybe a little silt sock around the bottom and a tarp over the top, something like that to keep it from eroding.
And that's sort of like, right, Martha, like an added stake, right? So my erosion control is separate from if he's stockpiling, put something around the base of that as well, right? Like in addition.
That's what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
From one of my Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners fundamentals trainings, they had a whole thing about soil stockpile erosion control. Now, I think that was generally for giant piles of dirt, and maybe yours is small enough that it doesn't need that much, but Chuck might be able to give us a sense of what he thinks for 5 yards of fill, what we'd need.
Okay. In the one that might be there for, you know, a couple of months, really, just while the major construction is going on, that'll be over within hopefully the first month, right? Is just the topsoil, and then which is hopefully kind of loamy, you know, earth. But then the kind of fill will just hopefully be like a week or so, a couple of weeks, so they can form up and pour the foundation, and then he can put it backfill everything. So.
Okay. So Chuck, what do you think about how much erosion control would be needed for that fill?
So it seems like it's within the erosion control perimeter of this project. And, you know, typically you could put erosion control around the stockpile of fill. I think the one that's leaving in 2 weeks, you don't have to worry about. I wouldn't worry about either one of them if it was there for 2 weeks. But, you know, being that it's going to sit around for 2 months, I'd like to see a tarp on top of it. It doesn't really need additional erosion control around it as long as it's within that erosion control perimeter, and the tarp will prevent it from sagging and getting some runoff. I think that would be. I mean, typically, a typical condition is any disturbed earth that is on site and still there after 30 days needs to be dealt with somehow, either by casting seed on it or by erosion control. I mean, it needs to be made permanent somehow. So I think you're saying 2 months kind of requires a tarp or something.
And that's my kind of guesstimation. I mean, I think they'll have the, you know, to me, I feel like the whole from start to foundation poured is like 6 weeks. So maybe it's more like a month, but I just know they're going to have to stockpile something for at least a few weeks or so, form it, pour it, you know, let it cure, and then they'll put it right back. But yeah, but that's easy. I'm happy, you know, that's good. So tarp is easy to do. So.
Great.
Okay. Anybody from the commission who went on a site visit and wants to tell any more what they saw at the site visit? Okay, Brian, you're up.
Yep. So while we were there, we did have pretty good discussion about the shed, which is somewhere screen bottom there. So the shed is inside the buffer zone. There's a gravel path leading to it. Just to get it on the record, when we were there, we talked about how the shed got put there. Basically, when Carl was putting it in, he asked the town where to put it, and they said, and just not in the wetlands, I guess the way to put it. They didn't give him the buffer zone information, so that's why it's there. From my perspective, I don't see a great other place to move it, not to mention access to it. So from my perspective, I'm fine leaving it there as long as we cover it with a permit or with a variance or, you know, some option like that. That's the things that are worth mentioning about Carl's perspective. While we were there, we did see in the back, there's a number of other violations that are in sight. And we'll have to discuss that in a different meeting as to whether we do anything about it. But there's a icon observation platform, others call it a kid's treehouse. I don't know, but it's basically in the resource. We can talk about that some other time.
Brian, you're talking about on someone else's property or
Yes.
on this property?
It's some other person's property. So
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yep, violation conversation. Likewise, there's a shed right next to the wetland, to the stream as well, but wanted to mention it for the record. Don't want to follow up on it now. Other than that, I'm all set.
Yeah, and to the shed point too, you know, that was something I had done pretty much the first month I moved into the house, and I also knew that there was that kind of intermittent stream, but had no idea that there was even a wetlands over there. It didn't show up on GIS. And one point that I think maybe Brian or someone had brought up on site, which was actually kind of interesting, is, you know, my resource area line that I've kind of shown is about at the closest 12 feet off of my property line. But hopefully, maybe if it sounds like that, it realistically might even be a little further in. So in the end, the shed's probably about 25 to 35 feet away, which hopefully is better. But so, yeah.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you, Martha. Yeah, I just wanted to, I was at the site visit with Brian and Martha and Carl. And we walked the site, got a very large yard, it's very nice. And the biggest question, I guess, for me, is the shed. And this is an RDA, so your wetland delineation lines don't really matter, so it's just how we feel they are. And I don't have a good sense of how far down the resource area line really should be, but I do think it's conservatively drawn. So I think if you were to actually get that delineated properly, I don't think your shed would even be in the 25-foot or even potentially the 35-foot zone. But that's, I don't know, you didn't bring like a soil auger when you were out there, Chuck, did you? Because that'd be the easiest way to tell.
So, you know, I think when Carl first moved into town, we discussed the shed, and I'm surprised there's not a permit for this. Or maybe you showed me the shed. I'm not sure, but I remember talking about it. And Carl wasn't on the commission at that time. So as far as being 35, I would suspect that it probably is 35 feet away, you know.
Or more, right?
Yeah, it seems to me that I do remember talking about the shed. I don't know in what capacity. Hey, I did this. Is this a problem, or is this a good spot for it? I'm not sure where I got into the conversation, but you know, Carl's always been pretty much by the book type of guy. So I think you're right about the zone being 35 feet away. He had plenty of land. There was no need to, you know, keep it, you know, away from anything. So he had room to move it out to the 35-foot line. I mean, we can certainly check that out, but I haven't checked where the wetland is in the last couple of years on this site, or actually it's off this site.
Yeah,
so
it's on the neighbor.
I'm
For an
just-
RDA, oh, go ahead, Martha.
I just want to chip in on that we do have precedent from a house that we looked at that's on, I think it's Verdi Circle, where they had a shed that was in approximately the same distance from the resource area. It was outside the 25-foot zone, but maybe not quite outside the 35-foot zone. And we figured that it was an existing shed and it could stay where it was. We did not insist that the homeowner move that shed when we gave them permission to do their project.
Yep, Varney Circle, Varney.
Varney Circle, there we go. Yeah.
And
So-
it was pretty close. It was in a mossy area. I mean, and there's been others. I mean, this shed is, like I said, I actually would say if push came to shove, it would be 35 feet away.
Mhm. Right, but I'm just gonna say, I think we can leave the shed where it is if we wanna include a variance to approve this pre-existing shed staying where it is in this RDA, so that that's on record for future commissions to know that we let it be there. I think that's probably a good idea. And so then the question is, are there other things that people want to discuss about this project? He's taking out 2 shrubs and a tree and putting in 3 trees. So we've got more than our replacement policy for tree replacements. Anybody else, any comments?
And I was just going to add that part of the 3 trees too is that I explained on site, and Chuck has pretty much been aware. I usually email him when a tree falls down from my neighboring properties into my yard because it's happened like 3 times. So I've lost a lot of vegetation on the property, which I don't like. Like about 2 years ago, I told you about a beautiful 20-foot pine tree, white pine, blew over, which was, you know, so yeah, not only do I want to just restore the habitat, but happy to start to I want to start to plant a few native trees and just get back some, you know, get back some of that kind of vegetation. So happy to do so.
And you're putting a red bud fairly close to the house and then 2 pines further away.
Yeah, yeah, and the red bud honestly will probably fluctuate 10 feet into still in that buffer area, like down in the north side, but it's at least somewhere off that vicinity. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I guess the only other question I have,
Mhm.
so along the recess area where the intermittent stream is, we would like seeing that 25-foot natural zone of natural vegetation. It's not on your site plan, but from my memory of walking the site back there, it is currently vegetated, right? It's not just
Yeah.
manicured lawn in that zone between the intermittent stream and the.
Oh, sorry, I put 35, not 25. Yeah, so probably, I think Andy, like from the actual stream or the intermittent stream, in the first probably 12 to 15 feet, I don't touch. And I was pointing out that unlike there's a couple of properties you can just see that are lawn right up to the water, where I kind of give up. It's just too much maintenance, honestly. So I've just been kind of cutting a line with like, my lawnmower, but I'm probably 15 feet away anyways. And then what I'm maintaining is basically what has been there since I moved in. And then I've also just pointed out anytime I've got some kind of native shrub from in my work, if I can pick up something, I've got 3 sweet bay magnolias that I've thrown in there. I've got about a half a dozen clethras I've thrown in, high bush blueberry, because again, if in a perfect world, I would love to just replant 15 feet by 160 feet of new vegetation. So I sort of let it kind of mostly do its thing there. So
Yeah, well, that sounds good.
yeah. Yeah, it gets so, again, when I had met Chuck, I think in December, he said, hey, why don't you move up that resource line, right? Because given just the water table down there. So I would say literally that 12 or 15 feet, it's kind of unmaintainable anyway. It's really just would be best to become shrubbery. I want to put some trees back in there. So
Just don't put any play structures back there. They're gonna pile on you.
no, we live next to the park. It's perfect. I don't have to.
And you said that the thing you're going to use for erosion control is marked on your plan and it's silt sock.
Yeah.
And it says staked and you can see the curved line and it comes up and it meets your retaining wall at the back corner of the house.
Yes, and that was again advised. I think I told you that was Chuck saw that and kind of I tried to lay out what he had thought would work. So that's kind of goes right behind the proposed tree that we'd like to remove, and then in front of the remaining pines that we are going to stay, and then kind of connects to the curb.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Anybody
so
comments? Chuck.
yeah, so silt sock. You want to use mulch sock.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think silt sock is what you put in a storm drain.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I was trying to think of like what drew me. That's all the comments I have on this project.
I actually guess I have one question. I was so like eager to get this my Caltech math on there. Then of course, if like today I was thinking, with that kind of buffer, it just makes sense. Like I said, I only need 1 unit, so it just makes sense to just capture all the roof water, right? I guess. So I guess I'm just talking out loud. Never mind.
So if you
Like,
captured half the roof water,
it would just be maybe less trenching, right? Like less, because right now I'm coming from the front of the porch, kind of across the farmer's porch to get those couple on the kind of southern side. I guess my question is if I didn't have to capture those, but then captured most, half of the addition in the sunroom.
so the rule is that you have to, any new construction that obviously with a roof on it, you'd have to capture all of that.
Okay.
So you can do the equivalent of some existing gutter system that collects the same amount. We've allowed that in the past. So that just, I mean, that's the determining factor.
So I've done that correctly. Then everything is captured that has a roof on this plan, which is like 450 gallons. So okay, got it.
Well, I don't know if you heard me. You don't have to capture your house if you're capturing all of your addition.
No, I'm just doing the addition.
Okay,
Just the
and that's
addition.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and the porch has a roof on 3/4 of it, so I've got all that.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
So on that note, we're ready to close the hearing. He says at 10:04.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, this is Brian. I make a motion to close the hearing on 68 Longfellow Road.
This is Andy. I'll second that.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, and can I have a motion? It would be a motion for a negative determination.
This is Brian. I make a motion for a negative determination for 68 Longfellow Road.
I'll just make a friendly addendum that we are allowing the shed to stay where it is.
Any other conditions that we want to put in there? So, mulch sock.
Oh yeah, mulch sock and oops, am I allowed to do like the tarp?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, and the tarp.
Yeah.
Tarp over the soil stockpile. And I'd like to see the soil stockpile as close to Longfellow and the house as possible rather than in the backyard.
Yes. And as a side comment too, I'm kind of using the mulch sock line as a like construction limit line. Like I've told the I don't want to have people, because we have the land, people tend to want to just go down there and start parking trucks and doing things, but I want to kind of control that. So nothing will be below that.
So the mulch stock line will also be the limit of works line.
That's in my head. That's what that's supposed to do too. Yeah.
Okay.
So is there a second for that?
Oh, so with the conditions discussed, yes, I'll second that.
And Chuck, are there any more conditions we need to include in this RDA?
Yes. Well, I mean, we're going to have a pre-activity meeting and the erosion control will be discussed at that meeting. There's no sign with an RDA, but we would like a construction schedule of the major milestones, start of excavation, backfill, start of construction, when landscaping is starting.
Yep.
Okay.
And Chuck, I've never been on this end of it. That goes to you, right? So that's
Yes. They can just send it to me, but we'll have to do a pre-activity meeting before the building permit is signed. So your contractor will probably be telling you, get this pre-activity meeting completed. It could be with you or with your contractor.
Okay.
So is that a second then? Is it time to vote?
Yes, there was a second. John, can you start the voting?
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, done.
All right. Well, that just became real.
All right. So does Carl get to join the commission again? Unrecuse himself?
Yes, you can join us, Carl.
All right.
Okay. All right. And I'm sorry, I think that was our last hearing, but my computer is restarting itself, so I cannot read the agenda anymore. So what else do we have to do at
That was
10:08?
our last hearing. So next is old new business.
Which you're probably going to skip over because there's nothing new to add to that. Then we had some discussion items. There's no correspondence. The MACC conference, let's stick a pen in that because that's going to be discussed. Their letter went out to Terrace Park. I haven't heard from those people. Letter went out to 44 Eastway. It was more of an information letter saying, we noticed that the work had been done. We'll be back to review it. At that point, we expected everything to be cleaned up at that time. And there's a minutes discussion on this list. And the minutes discussion is that we've been engaged by supervisors and been encouraged to put more detail into the back end of how this would happen. And we have a partner with the planning board. So Andrew McNichol wants to see if we could hire someone to do their meetings and our meetings. And I think that town manager, our new supervisor, Matt Cronellis, you know, the lead of the Public Services Division, and HR all looked into this and said that they just need some more details and maybe we could bring it forward. We haven't even thought about budget or whatnot, so I'm not sure at the end of the day if the Conservation Commission would have to contribute to the budget. Maybe we won't, but the conversation has started. So this was better than information I had a couple weeks ago. So hopefully we'll be continuing with this, but in the meantime, nothing at the moment.
Okay, I would propose that in Brian's list of budget items, I would be happy to see hiring someone to do the minutes for us be a high priority on our budget list.
Yeah, so that's
is-
where
it is
this
that.
conversation started with that request, and it's turned into what I just described. So we obviously have to work within the framework of the town, and certain things we just can't do on our own. And when I said, you know, hey, we have our own budget, we'd like to do this, can we explore that? It was turned into, let's see if we can keep this internal and to get it into the public services budget. So it is high priority. I'm hoping that we'll have some more and better results to share with you by our next meeting on the 8th.
And
Okay.
Martha, it is currently #1 priority in that spreadsheet.
Perfect. That's where I think it should be. Okay, any other old new business?
So I don't know if we wanted to talk about our budget and quickly discuss that. I know that Brian put something together and I could put it up on the board if people want to see it. I think you just sent it to me tonight, so it should have everything. I'm not sure if it does or not, but
What, you don't like spreadsheets, Chuck?
is that the one you, is not what you sent me? Oh, sorry.
No, it's not a spreadsheet.
All right. Well, look at that. I'll see if I can find it. Thought I grabbed everything from.
Yeah, this was an older cut edit before it became a spreadsheet. This was just a list.
This is what you sent this is what Brian, you sent today, the Word document.
Well, in that case, I sent you the wrong one and I apologize. Hang on a second. I don't know how I did that, but I'll send you one right now. Send to everybody.
Yeah, if you
Mark-
send it, I can put it up there quickly.
All right.
I was gonna say that the
I hate this computer. Oh my God.
the kids these days, I'm actually not currently on Facebook anymore, but I hear that the Facebook Marketplace is the new better Craigslisty type thing where you can also look to hire or people like, right, there's part-time people out there for say babysitting or whatever it is. I wonder if that could be a source for this Brian wrote kind of, you know, ecology or something, someone to help with the steno stuff, the minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it probably will get to that point. I think we need to work with HR to develop pay structure,
Right.
job description. That's their end of it, pay and where that's money's coming from. That would be myself and Andrew McNichol's end of it. And again, hopefully this comes forward. I think that what I had heard from Andrew before was that it was just met with a lot of resistance. But I ended up asking myself, and I started with Fidel, and he encouraged me to talk to others, Matt Cornelis, and Sean, who's in our HR department. And so it just got a different reception. So I'm encouraged. I think that we're close to moving forward. I don't think we're going to need to go to Facebook Marketplace or anything like that. So like I said, hopefully within the next meeting, we'll be able to take this off our agenda and I will have some firm news. So I don't have that, Brian.
Yeah,
You,
I'm looking to send it again. I see why I sent you the wrong one, so now I'm trying to find the right one.
okay. So also,
So here it is. Okay, it should be on the way to all of you. Yeah, hopefully I got the right one this time.
While Chuck's looking for it, just a reminder that the MACC Spring Conference is coming up and anybody who's interested is welcome to attend, encouraged to attend. Brian has said what he's interested in doing, but if anybody else wants to go, there may be some money available to help offset the costs of attending.
yeah, so I'm going to a lot of the virtual meetings. And I know Brian signed up for a few and someone else in my office signed up for a few along with our new community development director, Andrew McNichol, signed up for a few. So we have people in the office going. You won't hear from two of them about the workshops that they're sitting in on. But what I would say is if we go to a workshop, we might at each meeting talk about, just give a summary of what we found, what we learned, what we talked about, and how it relates to Reading. I have it up there. I'm assuming I don't have it up for everybody. So, okay, here we go. Here's the screen share of the budget.
So just to say a couple of things, there's a number of the items on here where I just have question marks. I just didn't even know what guess to make. Furniture from Matera, it really depends on what we want to put in there. I would suggest we decide on a dollar value whenever we get around to doing that, and then buy furniture that fits within that dollar value. Likewise, there's one near the bottom, which was a recent suggestion by Chuck, which is plants for the slope near Lot 5 on Grove Street. And Carl tonight sent me some thoughts he has on the cost. And so I'll add that to the spreadsheet once I open up Carl's email.
But I think we would redefine the cost, right, Carl? That was if we're installing them, it would be a third of that price.
Yeah, so I think what I had sent you guys previously,
it's about $2,000.
Right.
There was like a 1,600 and a 780 maybe.
Yeah. So for only the plants, right? So this would be no site prep or soil or whatever, right? And and no markup on it. There's just us buying the plant. So I thought, yeah, 12 shrubs at like number 5 gallon were like, say, $60. It could even be 55, but who knows? Then perennials are probably about $9 to $10 a piece at 150. So yeah.
So you can see that the total right now is already 15, throw in the 2,000 or whatever for the plants, that's at 17. We don't have that much to spend. So I think the key here is to figure out which things we think are more important and pull the trigger on them and get it done sooner rather than later. Some of the things near the top, they're not the most important, but they're pretty inexpensive. So I put them up there to higher priority just because we could get them without drastically reducing the budget. But obviously everybody needs to read this and send some input back.
Why don't we just ask people to prioritize them and for the next meeting, and add anything they want.
Right, so if you wanted to do this, you could send me just by the row number and send me what your priority is for it, and I'll create another column for each of you and put in your votes, if you will.
Meeting minutes. It's my only priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can keep hitting that. I gotta tell you, it's not gonna be part of any budget that the Conservation Commission is going to do. I think that I believe we won't have to pay for it. So that could be number one, but it will be go off this quickly. So
Which
I
is
think
great,
that
because-
has
because
been solved. I just can't,
that gives us
it's not
4,000.
100% at this point.
Yeah, but that'll give us $4,000 more to spend, so that's fine.
Yeah, but so we have $5,000 to spend. So we're well over.
Yes.
But there's some things here that, you know, are easily cut. I mean, this
Have any
mailer.
more? Do we have any more land to be surveyed at the moment? Are there any?
No, that was a special circumstance, but we do not.
Okay, so we don't need to spend that money this year because there are no surveys to do.
I don't think no, I didn't put any in there.
Well, we could approach this a different way. Does anyone know anyone that wants to donate land to the Conservation Commission? If the answer is no, then we don't. But, you know, you guys should go out and talk to your friends and neighbors first.
Okay, so on that one, there's no money impact anyway right now, Martha, because I did a guesstimate of 6,000, but I did 0.
Got it. Right. I saw the 6,000. I thought we could easily cut the 6,000. I didn't notice the 0 in the next column. Sorry, it's after 10 o'clock at night.
It's
Okay.
matching with spreadsheets.
Right. So are you suggesting that we each email you with our priorities and you'll add that into the spreadsheet?
Sure. Yeah, and what I expect to happen is we'll get clumping around some of them, which will tell us what we want for the higher priorities.
Okay. All right. So we don't
Yeah.
have to spend more meeting time on this if everybody takes this home as a homework task.
Now, there is some urgency around this. Chuck has pointed out a number of times that we spend it or lose it. So if you got people could send me your priority listings sooner rather than later, I can get it into the spreadsheet, get it back out to you people, and we'll begin to close in on what we want to do.
Okay. I did send an email last week to Chuck and you all about like a project management something. I mean, just something to help when Chuck has to send out all the documents to us. I would love a different system. I don't know what we would want, but I mean, I've used this thing called Basecamp many, many years ago, and it's kind of its purpose. It's just to help you keep organized projects. But yeah, just getting these mass emails on my Thursday nights. I dread my Thursday nights. No, I have trouble finding them, honestly. So if there was like a place that could be easier to be found.
I was thinking we could, yeah, we could use Google Docs. So so Andy, you sent that to me, and I sent it to IT, and I asked, well, again, I gotta work through the systems that we
No, but
have.
yeah,
Sent it
I was
to
gonna-
IT and asked them what they thought about it. They haven't got back to me.
Okay.
And so some of IT is very particular about security and whatnot.
Right.
And so I just wanted to make sure that, that would be fine, and we could take that step. Or maybe they had another suggestion. But I know that we could also do Google Docs if that would help.
Because Andy, that's interesting. I would never even thought to even say anything because I figured that's just how it is. But I agree, and especially I can't always attend, the site meetings, and so I find myself searching through emails trying to find plans ahead of time. If there was some consolidated area, that would be very efficient. That's interesting.
So I'm wondering, we say it at basically every meeting and almost in front of every application. If in a pinch, why aren't you guys going to the Conservation Division page and looking at this address and finding everything that it's ever been sent to us?
I do, but even that conservation page is hard to find. But no, I mean, I will go there and get the information. But
No, I want to use your software if it works out. I mean, I want to make it really simple. But what do you does Google Docs? Is anybody familiar with that?
I use that at work. Yeah.
Because then we could just have the address and put everything into Google Docs, and you could share it with with the members.
So let me just say that I'm fine.
That
with
has to be
Google
approved
Docs.
too, by the way.
But as an alternative, what I have is I created a folder off of my inbox called Conservation Commission, and I do a conditional sort. So any mail comes from any of you, it gets moved into there automatically. So then all I have to worry about manually is looking for anything from MACC or something like that. But if it comes from one of you, it goes in there so I can find it because it's in there automatically.
Just one other suggestion, if Chuck is posting all of these plot plans on the conservation website, another option for sending out an email would be to just put the link in the email to the town's conservation page where the document is that we're supposed to read, rather than attaching a hard copy of the document to our emails.
That could be, that's
option.
So I will say that I still would like to get the email from Chuck where he provides some context around each of the items.
Yeah, that's useful.
Oh, yeah.
Very useful.
Yeah, it's just a question of, is the attachment needing to be sent as an email attachment, or, I mean, I know we used to get pre-COVID a package of paper printouts of them in the mail that Chuck would put together and send out. And I'm not necessarily advocating going to that, but possibly rather than attaching the document, if the exact same document is sitting there on the web page, just give us the link to the web page so we don't have to go searching under current projects, map, blah, 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 file number, blah, 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 to get to it. I don't know if that's harder or easier for you, Chuck.
Now, I'm going to try to come up with a plan in taking all this information in and try to figure out how to make it easier for everybody. For me, it's almost like, obviously I used what was here, and it seemed to me I've got used to it, because it seems to, like, if I'm searching for whichever one we're looking at tonight, let's say it was 18 Libby, I would just do a search on my email for 18 Libby, because in the subject line, that's what it says, and it would come up, and any discussion that was about that would come up. So that seemed to work. And then when we had the other one, but I actually have thought of some things, but I want to talk to IT. We are restricted in certain ways, but obviously, just like I want to end every meeting early, because I don't want people to get burnt out, I don't want you to be struggling to find information. So that's important. That's as important. And that's something that I need to provide. So I have some ideas, and we'll see where those go.
Okay, it's mostly the attachments, like the downloadable files.
Yeah, he introduced a process with with our old management team, because another town that I know quite well uses this thing called Novus Agenda. And that links the agenda name to all the documents. But there's other ways of doing that. And that's what I was going to try to recreate. So when you get your agenda, it would have a link attached to it.
With one PDF that has everything, basically. Is that what it would be, or something along those lines, or?
Yeah, I don't know about that part. We'll find out. I think it brings you to a file that has everything in it. It's not all combined. So you would have the separate plan, you would have the notice of intent, any correspondence. And so what we would do is, in my head, we would have, like, let's say 0 Small Lane, which has been months and months and months. Instead of not having all that information, as a matter of fact, the only place all that information is on the Conservation Division page under 0 Small Lane, all in one spot. You guys, unfortunately, would have to look through all your emails to find that. So maybe we could just make 1 0 Small Lane that the Conservation Commission has a link to, everything's in there, and then somehow, just to know what's new for this meeting, would have to be figured out. You'd need to know that, I would assume. You would want to know what's the most current information.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so budget, people should send Brian their preferences.
And actually, I have one last thing to say about the budget. In there's a couple of places where I say, this is for an area we're trying to improve. I'm referring to Pinevale, which is a place that Chuck in particular has been trying to focus attention. And so when you see that in my comment section, you'll know I'm referring to Pinevale.
Thank you. Okay, minutes for approval. Are we ready for that? Brian sent us his minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read them?
Yes.
Yes.
And Brian, was that February 8th that you did, the most recent meeting?
It was, yes.
Okay. And Chuck and Andy and I, all of us have still not done our minutes yet for our previous meetings. But we'll get to them eventually. All right.
Martha, you already gave me one correction to make in the minutes, so I'll do that and send an update out.
Okay, and that correction was the spelling of Giovanni Federa's last name for the record.
I'm gonna change his name to Hey You.
All right.
Anybody else have any corrections for those minutes?
If you have them, just send them to me and I'll incorporate them. Okay, 10:30.
Okay, so can we approve those minutes tonight?
Yeah, as amended.
Do I have a motion? They're all still reading them.
Oh, I didn't look at the screen.
No, here's the minutes. What?
So as you're reading, I'll just say, this was my first attempt at taking out more of the detail, partially to allow them to be written faster and partially because you don't need to have all that detail. So if you want to give me feedback on that too, that'd be fine.
That looks good. Did I give you a really brief update about SWEC, that last meeting? The SWEC, Simon's Way.
You you did, and I thought
Just
I had
maybe-
it in there, no?
I'm reading it really fast.
Yeah, I remember writing something, I'm just not sure when I wrote it.
I don't see it.
All right, so that's,
So, we'll
that's
add them.
feedback, and I'll go check it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to say much, just whatever. But yeah, so with the addendum of adding a SWAC update, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from
February 8th.
February 8th.
I'll second that. This is Brian.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, are there any other things we need to cover in this meeting, Chuck?
Not according to the agenda.
Okay. And I just want to say, I noticed that we had a visitor who Brian says that he's encouraging that person to join the Conservation Commission. I noticed also that the visitor disappeared about 10 o'clock.
Right, so it turned out that it was his wife just using his account, so it was Donnan. And she texted me to say that she's done around 10, you're right.
Mm.
And is she the one who's thinking of joining, or is it him who's thinking of joining?
They both are, although I think she's more serious, but they both ask questions about it. We talked for a while.
Okay.
And 10 o'clock is her. Did you
Pumpkin
mean to
Run?
say that because that matters, that 10 o'clock is about where she would draw the line?
No, I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the 10 o'clock is her limit for when she's not a member yet. I don't know.
I actually was going to say, with given how many projects we were really by 10:15, that was actually quite efficient. You know.
Yeah,
So,
I was afraid it was going to be a very late night.
Me too. I thought it was going to
Late night.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so we should end it now so we can leave happy.
Yeah. Okay. And we have a couple of other people that may also be joining the commission, and we're hoping that'll get through the select board process, and maybe they'll be with us next time. Right, Chuck?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn at 10:36?
This is Brian, to make a motion to adjourn at 10:36.
Second.
All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Yay. All right. Good night, everybody.
And
Thank
Chuck,
you. Good night.
Chuck, you made a good decision to go home because it's been snowing here for a
Oh,
while.
it's snowing really. That's why I did
Oh.
it.
My computer says heavy snow.
Yeah, I'm
it
nursing
doesn't look
my,
heavy yet, but
I'm nursing my wheels, which are 10-year-old, it's 11-year-old car. It's really, really shows.
Okay,
Well,
everybody,
anyways, thanks everyone.
Say goodnight.
I'll see you. Yep.
Good night.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.